It's time for Mac Break Weekly. There's big news at Mac Break Weekly. Andy Anako's here. So is Alex Lindsay. Renee Ritchie has the day off. We'll be talking about the invites. They've gone out to Apple's iPhone announcement. It's next Tuesday. It's got a very cryptic message, California streaming. We'll try to break that down, talk about what Apple might announce, and then we'll talk about their backing down on their CSAM initiative, and, of course, the changes that are happening in the App Store. Does this mean a big change for app developers? It's all coming up next on Mac Break Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust. This is TWiT.
This is Mac Break Weekly, episode 782, recorded Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Pizza the Hutt. This episode of Mac Break Weekly is brought to you by Molecule. Molecule's reimagining the future of clean air, starting with the air purifier. For a limited time, save up to $120 on a Molecule air purifier by visiting molecule.com and using the promo code MacBreak120 at checkout. Enjoy free shipping and a 30-day home trial on your order. And by AT&T. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry. It's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new. So AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. And by Udacity. Gain in-demand tech skills in as little as 3 months with Udacity's part-time online tech courses. Visit udacity.com/twit and get 75% off any program with the code TWIT75. Limited time offer. It's time for Mac Break Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Apple. Renee Ritchie is recusing himself after last week's gunfight. He says, I'm out.
That's right. More time for the gunfight. Excellent.
Canadians. No, he had another obligation, sorry to say, but that's okay because the gunfighters are here. Renee Ritchie is not, but Andy Anako is from WGBH Boston. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Leo.
I'll try to shoot over my head. I'll try to sit down a little bit lower, and then you can just go over the head. Also, Alex Lindsay. Go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to say. So, are you going to be like the piano player who just like grabs his beer from the top of the piano runs, or are you going to be the ones who are going to come on, you fellas? We can't have that here now. If you want to set things up, we can't have that in the middle of town.
I'm going to be the guy who dodges under the piano, and I'll be back. Alex, no, I'm just teasing you. Alex Lindsay is also here from officehours.global and 090.media. And, I'm only referring to the fact that we got a little bit of email, and I'm sure you guys got a little bit of. And it's interesting. I think we're doing a good job because it was about 50-50 split between Alex is so full of it and Andy is so full of it.
I know. You figure you're going somewhere in the right.
Yeah.
And it's what you miss in a lot of shows is differing opinions.
I was also pleased that it was like also split 50-50 between, this is exactly the type of respectful, in-depth debate that I love about this show to, for God's sake, are we going to talk about I'm sorry. I didn't mean to use like the nasty voice, but I mean like I think both responses were very, very valuable and heard.
We listen. But some people any kind of conflict at all is distressing to them. For personal reasons. And so I understand that, and I apologize if that bothers you. It's but on the other hand, and I said this, I think, on last week's episode, we don't want to be the fanboy program either, where everything Apple does is miraculous. Right. We want to get a variety of opinions on so that everybody can, think about it and make up their own minds. So that's kind of what we try.
And we do want to. I think we clarified it on Twitter. The most important news source that most people can have. But we did clarify that. Andy's one of my favorite people in the world.
Yeah.
So people shouldn't know about anything.
When mommy and daddy fight, people get upset tummies, but mommy and daddy still love each other.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when we're anywhere, Andy and I are within 50 miles of each other. There's a deli somewhere that we're going to be eating at and talking about stuff.
Right.
So, I missed the as I always do. For obvious. See, some people don't like conflict. I just don't like Twitter. So I always miss that. So there was a Twitter back and forth on this too. That makes sense.
A lot of was a lot of Twitter.
Was there?
I was busy. I added more Twitter followers in 1 week than I've added in like a year.
Good.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go.
Well, we're going to get to that because Apple has made some more changes. New York Times says Apple gives ground in a strategic retreat. That actually in two different ways. One on CSAM detection. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about the new App Store rules as well. But I guess we should really start with the fact that this morning invites were sent out. As Andy said, the balloon has gone up. There will be an Apple event a week from today, September 14th, and presumably it's for the iPhone. Apple's teasing the event with the tagline, California Streaming.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit more blatant than we're used to. We're used to just looking at shadows in the middle of the graphic and deciding that, hey, does that kind of look like an external satellite antenna or not? But this is are they just going to spend like 45 minutes talking about the success of Ted Lasso? Because if they are, I'm totally on board for that.
Shortbread recipes. Here's Jaws' tweet. It says, Greg Joswiak, we're California streaming. By the way, I hope Jaws gets some stage time this time. That would be really nice. We're California streaming September 14th. See you real soon. # Apple event. Here's the video. It's the Apple logo glowing right where Tim Cook usually stands.
And notably, something that looks very AR.
Oh, you're right. It isn't real. It's floating with a shadow, and then we go into it, and then we're in some... Where is this? Is this Mammoth Lake or something? They're not going to announce a new version of Mac OS 11, are they? Mammoth Lake? I don't know. Is it Tahoe? I don't know. It isn't Tahoe.
Here's some pictures from our vacation from Yosemite, taken with the new iPhone 13.
It's taking you somewhere else.
This doesn't tell you anything, does it? But I do like the augmented reality. So you think that actually is a good take, Alex? You think this will be it'll be more than the iPhone 13, or it will be the iPhone 13 in the context of AR?
We're no longer in a point of are they going to talk about AR? They're going to talk about AR every single show. So they're now. I think that they're in the landing protocol. And so they're what we're going to see is continued discussion about AR and more examples of what that looks like. And it's already at it's already compelling. As far as what they're doing. We're working with somebody that they did a couple parts for their company. And the company sales guys got an opportunity to use it in the field with just a handful of parts that were just examples that they showed some of their clients. And the response was so intense that they were like, yeah, we need all the other 5,000 parts. We need everything.
If anybody's expecting any like substantive announcements of things that we haven't already seen before, I'm guessing no. But the thing is, one of the most impressive things and the most demoable parts of the new version of iOS is object capture. Just how easy it makes it to simply say, to simply be able to say that hey, I'm bored. I'm waiting for this Zoom call to start. Hey, I wonder if I can make a 3D model of this can of Dr. Pepper on my desk. I happen to have my iPhone nearby. I may as well do it. So I would love to see them show off object capture and the third-party apps that I'm sure are going to be scrambling to take advantage of this and to become the default app that everybody wants to use to turn everyday objects into 3D things. And
everybody has been. I mean, the apps have been bouncing out already. People starting to do lots and lots of tests. Yeah, and so I think that there's I think FX Home, their camera tracking software now does it'll export the camera matching tracking data to motion. So a lot of the stuff is starting to tie together pretty nicely.
Do you think people use this stuff though? I mean, I know you, Alex, do for professional reasons, if nothing else. But I mean, we've been seeing these kind of IKEA things and all sorts of stuff for a long time, and I don't get the sense that it's. I don't hear anybody I know saying, "Oh, have you seen the new IKEA app or the new FX Home app?"
Yeah. I think the new version of iOS might be the thing that throws the door open, because that's when you get just ordinary people who have never heard of photogrammetry before, haven't been using the previous apps, the previous utilities for this, once it comes to the era of I'm going to do a 3D model of my 2 or 3 year old daughter's favorite toy, and I'm going to put that toy like in all the pictures and all the videos that we make, and it could be a fun thing that we can do. That's when this thing, in the 2021 framework, that's when this thing kicks open. Obviously, we're all hoping for something, an AR experience that's better than simply holding up your phone and looking through a viewfinder. But I think that that's still so far in the future that we can't really predict it as coming in 2 years or 3 years. It might, but I don't think that we can really predict a date when we're going to be able to wear something on our faces that we're going to want to be seen in public with. But this is the sort of thing that's going to. I'll just say that for old timers, it's sort of like the first time like you could get like an image scanner that cost like less than $300, and then suddenly everybody's like letter to the family has like 8 scanned pictures in it, and now you're just scanning things just so that you can scan them and play with them, and then a whole bunch of apps were enabled because now we have a source of imagery that didn't have to be purchased as clip art. I think that's why this feature of iOS 13 is really going to kick things open before we get the goggles that we all want.
And I think that Apple has the luxury of not needing to make money with it immediately or not needing to make a big splash. And so what they're slowly doing is putting out all the tools and letting the developers build the solutions, let them figure it out, let people like us, so one of the big challenges right now is that USDZ is still difficult to develop for. But we're getting time to do that. Before you have a bunch of the problem you really get into is that once something gets to a point where the consumers want it, then there's this huge pressure for them to do that. And then when it doesn't work, they're like, okay, I'm never using that again. And so right now you don't want to be pushing consumers and everybody talking about it and everything else. What you want are the first movers, the developers, the people who have to generate the content, so on and so forth, to have all those tools. And the fact that you've been shipping LiDAR with all those phones and all those iPads for a couple of years means that the market is massive. And so the thing is that, yeah, you're absolutely right that it hasn't come out yet, but there is an enormous amount of pressure building around it. And Apple is, I think, taking a very phased and very methodical approach to this process. And I think that it's what we didn't see with Google. I think this was the mistake Google made in this area where they jumped right out and started talking about it and showing all the cool things that you could do and everything else, and it was not cooked yet. And it burned up the phones, and it it's not burned them up, but
it didn't get much attention here. But a couple of years ago, Microsoft had an event that basically said 3D is it. It's all going to be 3D. They showed you how to include models in your schoolwork. It was a creators event. They announced Paint 3D, which they have since discontinued. This is not the first time companies have announced that 3D is the next big thing or AR is the next big thing. Samsung phones still have that AR pen feature, which they demonstrated, which I've never seen anybody use. I know you can always make the case, well, yeah, of course, this is how it is. And then Apple announces it, or Apple does it better, and then suddenly it takes off.
3D printers are like a very niche thing, and so are drones. And then there's some point where it becomes easy for everybody to do it, and suddenly everybody's doing it. And then you have to make laws about how you can use it.
But that is a very interesting example, because I think that everybody who has the ability to create these kind of tools and put this kind of infrastructure forward, they all know that it's going to be important. They don't know how yet because the marketplace hasn't really showed them yet. And so we've been talking about Microsoft, Google, and Apple, and they've all been doing it in ways that are very, very signature for those three companies, where Microsoft, they did jump in way, way too hard a few years ago, almost making the impression that, hey, the next version of Windows is going to be all augmented reality. You're not even going to need a keyboard. You're not even going to need a physical body in order to use it. But nonetheless, they built this thing called HoloLens, which is actually very, very successful within the realm of a commercial usage, meaning you're a place that needs training, a place for which augmented reality with a $3,000, $2,000 headset with limited capability, but custom software developed in-house is a very, very good tool. They're having success there. Google is having success by integrating this into their search tools, where now if they've been building out this huge library of augmented reality search results, where if you search for certain things, in addition to, well, here's the basic information about a zebra, but also, hey, do you want a zebra on your desktop? Do you want to see what the spaceship looks like in 3D, and you can walk around it and integrate it in your environment and examine it that way? It can do it that way. Apple is doing the thing where, hey, we can put out the most enormous worldwide army of 3D capture hardware that has ever existed, so that once all we have to do at some point is flip a switch, and now we have all this power of tens of millions of LiDAR equipped phones and devices, along with infrastructure built into the operating system that makes capture trivial, so that as annoyed as you've been going through museums about seeing people like taking selfies next to pictures and taking selfies next to statues, now you're going to be just as annoyed by people like circling like every statue that they like, trying to capture a 3D model of it, only so that they can have this beautiful a model of this beautiful statue that they can then play with for the rest of the year.
This is historically what companies do. They try to find the next big thing, and then, as you say, they're working in a vacuum. They don't know exactly what people want. I'll be on this panel and all future panels, the skeptic, saying we've seen this before. This is not something. This is a niche product. This is not a mainstream product. And somebody, Kev Brewer in the chat room said, "Is AR going to be the 5G of this event?" Remember last year, everything was 5G, 5G, 5G. By the way, which has changed. Here we are a year later. Has anything changed thanks to 5G? Are we in any appreciably different environment thanks to 5G? No. And I think that this is going to be the AR event, and I think it's going to be the same result.
I agree.
Go ahead, Alex. Alex, it's your turn.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Alex.
All I was going to say is to Andy's point again, is that the object capture is a huge missing piece that got added, and that right now all we've seen is Apple put it out, and Apple very smartly didn't build a full-featured app. So what they did is they built out the architecture to do it. They built out some examples that were a little hard to use, and what that did is create space for developers to develop into. And to build their own ideas around it, rather than, because if Apple had built their own app, which they very much could have, they would have wiped out a lot of thought process. Because people would have said, well, everyone's going to use that app, and so as a result,
kind of what they did with the iBooks publisher.
A little bit, yeah. And so, and again, this is where it just depends. I don't think Apple is even trying. I mean, they're definitely talking about it, and they're definitely tilling the ground for AR, but they haven't started planting it.
It feels like to me like they are planting the seeds, as you say. They are tilling the ground. They are building the technologies. They don't have high expectations yet. Because the technology isn't going to come to fruition until we have glasses or something, right?
Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of things that I don't
see influencers sitting down at their meal and creating 3D objects to post on Instagram. That's just not. I don't think that's in the cards.
I'm sure that's also going to be the next major annoyance where people want. I do think that it really is
it's too much trouble. It's too much trouble. I don't see people doing that.
But if you make it really easy, I keep coming back to the chainsaw effect, where you bought a chainsaw because there's a hurricane, there's a big tree branch that down in your front yard you need to cut up. But afterwards, it's like, wow, it's so easy to cut things with this. I wonder what else I can cut with this. And I do think that maybe that's going to be a factor as well, where people will want to take, if there's one of those really, really obnoxious milkshakes where it's a milkshake, but they also put in an upside down ice cream cone and like a big churro and like sparklers, and people will want to take a 3D capture of it as it slowly melts into one indigestible blob.
And for content creators and for developers, there's always
I agree.
Of this thing, which is the ones that get into it, that believe in it, that start to work on it, will probably do well no matter what, as it expands out. The early adopters who have figured it out, because the problem with all of this stuff is it takes time. Like, it takes time to understand how it works and where those things work and so on and so forth. And by the time you jump into it, and when the wave is going, it'll be too late. The first movers will understand.
I agree. Content creators and developers should absolutely be paying attention. But when I say there's a new Apple event on Tuesday, nobody's saying, oh, I hope it's all about AR. Everybody's saying, "Tell me about the iPhone 13. What's going to happen?" Alex Lindsay's saying, "I hope it's all going to be about AR."
8 minutes. 8 minutes is my guess.
And 8 minutes of AR. Okay, we'll start.
And also, I do agree with you 100% that right now it's such a speculative sort of technology where everybody thinks that there's got to be a use for this that's going to set the world on fire, but nobody can take a guess at what it's going to be yet. So it's all speculative. But I mean, I love that we started off by talking about like reasons why, like, okay, us individually love this show. I love the fact that the word streaming is front and center in this event invitation.
What does that mean?
I have no idea. I was thinking
streaming. What does that
mean? When I got it today, when I got this morning, I was thinking that are we going to see a new attack on the Apple TV streaming box? Are we going to see is Apple going to finally try to make something that's competitive with these $50 dongles that do from the point of view of the person who just wants access to all of their favorite streaming channels, does just as good a job as an Apple TV box that costs 3 times as much? I would love to see that. I've always thought that was kind of a hole in their streaming hardware strategy, or they could just use this as an excuse where if they have the iPhone 13 but no other hardware to really show off, they've got the attention of everybody for that entire hour. They may as well use it to talk about other products, other services, maybe even other TV shows, other movies that they've acquired for Apple TV Plus that would not in any way or shape or form merit a whole event.
Well, here's the problem. I think it's pretty clear from rumors that they're going to announce new phones. In fact, there's an FCC filing for a MagSafe adapter that mentions 4 new models we've not seen before, so 4 iPhones. It's pretty clear we're going to also see a watch. But the problem Apple has, certainly with the watch, maybe even with the iPhone, is chip shortages and severe difficulty in making these things. So maybe they want to do a little misdirection, a little hand waving about some other stuff.
Maybe. Yeah, there's one of the rumors around the Apple Watch. There are 2 things that are being repeated by lots of different people. One of which is a slightly larger screen, but the other one is that the Apple Watch will not be available in as wide quantities as we've come to expect. Again, both of those things are rumors, but they're both.
This happened last year too, right? It was a delay in getting the iPhone and so forth.
I still think Apple should just flex and just this week just say
we got plenty of them.
4 products. No, we have 4 products. These are the prices. You can order them without knowing what they are. Just
wow!
Prices. You can order them right now, and you'll be in the front of the line. And it would be.
You would do it. I know you would do it. In fact, I know you have done it. I remember back in the day, you calling down to the manager of the Apple store in San Francisco saying, "I don't know what Apple's going to announce, but save." What is it? One of each?
I just said I'll just buy one of everything that they're releasing, and but I think I think that with streaming, the only thing I could think of is there's a couple places that I work in that that would be really fun to see Apple think about, which would be resolution to some degree, but high frame rate, spatial audio, and HDR are a couple places that would be a lot of fun to see Apple, start to play in. I don't know whether they will or not.
Actually,
but I think that if we're talking about streaming, those are the places that.
There's also rumors that Apple wants to do a podcast network or some sort of maybe streaming content. You think?
Yeah.
I mean, or are they just going to mention Apple TV, Apple TV Plus?
Well, we're also forgetting that just a couple of weeks ago they acquired a whole new streaming platform,
Primephonic.
So they could really talk about the package.
Okay, if you say 8 minutes on AR, I say 30 seconds on classical music at most.
I don't know. Joyce DiDonato's latest album is quite a banger.
If you put Diana Damaro,
if they get her on stage to do 3 numbers.
If you put Damaro on the bingo card, you can have that slot. It's yours. Diana Damaro. If they mention that, you win. You win it all. That's the center square to block.
Okay.
The MagSafe adapter is more than a rumor because it is an FCC filing, implying that there is going to be some sort of change in MagSafe. This actually looks like, this is the drawing. This looks like a MagSafe connector for a laptop. Do you think this is for a phone? Like they're going to, instead of having a lightning port, they're going to have a... What is that? That's bizarre.
Yeah. I don't know.
This is all we see. It mentions 8 iPhone models, 4 of them as, quote, legacy phone. They're all iPhone 12 models. Also, the charger was tested with 4 unidentified new phone units, presumably 4 new iPhones. And that would make sense. What you do, a iPhone 13 Pro, Pro Max, iPhone 13. Do you think they'll do a mini again? The mini sold well last year? I can't remember. It's all over.
They might do a platform-wide charging upgrade. Continue to have the moderately priced iPhone, whichever one they decide is going to be the moderately priced iPhone, and just simply give it a compatible charging platform. At this point, they have to start. I have to start wondering how much money they're willing to spend on having more of the components they need for the old-style chargers to continue to be made. It's and considering that rumors about Apple at least wanting to do a completely portless iPhone next year or the year after keep getting some steam, you wonder exactly how likely it is that they're going to be putting more investment in anything with connectors.
Well, there'll be an A15 chip, presumably.
Yeah.
There'll be, the rumor is, a smaller notch, an always-on 120 hertz display. We'll see what they do with MagSafe.
I wonder how they're going to handle that display. If they're going to give it a bigger battery, or whether they're dealing it with better power management.
Yeah, that's interesting.
When you look at the entire product line now, actually a lot of manufacturers are actually using a 60 hertz display as a sales feature, saying, "Oh, look how long now we're giving you more than 2-day battery life because of our breakthrough energy saving display. Please don't ask us why it takes so little power, because we're only refreshing the display half as much times as a premium phone."
I'll channel Renee here, because when they did mention this 120 hertz display, Ming-Chi Kuo also, or I'm sorry, Renee says it, Kuo Ming-Chi also announced that Apple is likely to adopt LTPO display technology to lower power consumption. Low temperature polysilicon and oxide. That's what's in the Apple Watch, and apparently improves battery life considerably. So,
and again, I think that there's, just like AR, there's a trudge towards 120 frames per second that we're going to probably see across the entire line. We're getting pretty close to completing. And once you do that, producing games, producing video content, producing all AR, all look better at 120. And so, like, some of the video content, like regular movies, don't look better. but we've discussed this before: documentaries, sports, and horror films.
I think 120 and HDR are arguably a bigger difference than HD to 4K. That the resolution's one thing, but boy, HDR makes a big difference, and I would imagine high frame rate.
Not only that, but particularly on a phone, particularly on a tablet, because if you want to trick people into thinking that, oh my God, this thing is a lightning bolt of speed and power, all you got to do is just make the display update faster. So when you're scrolling, boy, it just scrolls like butter. And if it gives you, it's like the sound that a really expensive car door makes when it closes, where it has nothing to do with the performance of the thing, but it makes you feel as though you're owning a luxury premium product. And I think that high frame rate is definitely one of the things that's going to help out there. So it's not just about streaming entertainment.
In many respects, though, it feels like this might be what would have in earlier years been called a 12S, an incremental upgrade over the existing 12. Or do you think there'll be something that people?
I agree. Well, I agree with that idea, chiefly because at this point they have to tell so many people about so many details about what it is that they're showing off. They will have had to have done training on so many different levels about what the selling points are, what the advertising points are. People definitely have things that are meant to go up into bus stations at this point. If there were something really radical and attention getting, somebody would have leaked it by now, because
they're making companies them now.
Right. Well, not just make, again, it's like at some point you have to get 100 people that you don't necessarily trust into a remote Ramada in conference room and show them like a half-hour long keynote slide presentation about here's what you're going to be selling starting next week in every AT&T store and every Verizon store. And this is the window in which you start to believe rumors, even if they're a little bit weird, because 6 months ago, nobody who was really in the know would jeopardize either their job or their contract by telling you that, oh, there's actually going to be a holographic display in the new iPhone. You hold it up to your face and it becomes the goggles. It's just that wonderful. That's how you basically lose your job and maybe even your life a week beforehand. Now you've got, again, people who are making $3 above minimum wage an hour who have to be told about what's going on. And if there's something that exciting, they're definitely going to be telling a cousin. And one of those cousins definitely has access to Twitter.
I'm really wondering I'm still stuck on California streaming and this image.
Yeah.
What is the image? Do we know what the image is of? Has anybody said? This is apple.com/apple.
It is okay. It is a beautiful nighttime image, and perhaps
maybe that's
part of it is just
maybe that's it. Huh?
You know,
It looks like
astrophotography is a big flex.
Could it be Tahoe? It's a lake. It looks like, or Mammoth. Or,
reminds me of Alaska, but we
already know it's California, right? California streaming. Now, if they'd said Alaska streaming, I think that would have been really interesting. And we're pretty sure that they're not going to do anything but watch and phone, right? Because when you say California streaming and you show a picture of California landscape, it almost sounds like you're going to announce a new Mac OS. But they wouldn't do that.
Well,
or would they throw us a crazy curveball?
I doubt it.
I don't know what it could. No. I don't know what it could be. I do think that the California is just simply, well, we want to get the word streaming in there somewhere, and of the list of 130 plays on streaming, that was the one that seemed the coolest. Yes, it's a 50 or 60-year-old hit song is going to be the cultural reference point that we're going to be tagging onto for our brand new latest of its kind technology.
See, I think it's Mammoth. Here's the John Muir Trail in Mammoth. If I can open this, I guess I can. Yeah, I think it's Mammoth Lake. Doesn't that look like the same kind of mountainous topography? I don't know.
Yeah. No, again,
it's definitely not Convict Lake. We know it's not Convict Lake.
boy, all the different plays on words they get in there.
Could it be Wild Willie's Hot Spring? I don't know. It could be. It could be. I'm just saying. I don't know. All right. Well, we'll find out all in a week. Now, what we're going to do, it's 10 a.m. Pacific. So we're going to move iOS today, which has moved, by the way, for people who didn't notice this morning, is now on Tuesdays again. Rosemary Orchard has agreed to put it back where it was. So Micah and Rosemary will start the show a little earlier, 8:30 Pacific next Tuesday, 11:30 Eastern. And then as soon as they're done with that, we will go to live. And they have to be done by 10 because that's when Apple's going to do its coverage. Apple will be pre-recorded, right, Alex? Why would they do anything different?
I'd be surprised.
I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Live, yeah.
And which means they'll be done at 10:59. And we will then begin Mac Break Weekly, and I hope you all will be here. If you want to join me for the stream, we'd love it. We could start Mac Break Weekly an hour early and do the stream too. We can do that offline. You don't have to do it during the show. That's rude, isn't it? Put you on the spot. Well, Andy, what do you think? Can you be here?
If I'm up that early, sure.
Yeah, save the date. Yeah, you'll be up. I think you'll be up. I'm just thinking. I'm guessing. 1 p.m. Eastern. So we'll stream. And then, of course, it'll be a big Mac Break Weekly. And, I wonder if we'll get Renee back. I wonder if it's really what Renee's doing now is finding out what that MagSafe adapter's for. We don't know.
Could. See, unfortunately, on that long list of like lesser hassles of COVID, it's like we used to know. Damn, if you keep an eye on Renee's Instagram, and if he's got like an Instagram of like his boarding pass on his watch, he's headed to Cupertino. That something's going to be big is going to be announced next week. Now we just have to go to experience and luck.
Actually, Micah, you might want to. I'm thinking now, Micah, if you're watching, you might want to do iOS Today later because it's going to be instantly out of date as soon as Apple. Well, we know it's iOS 15. We know it'll be probably an iPhone 13, an Apple Watch 7, probably. I would have guessed that's pretty obviously what they're going to talk about. AR probably because of the invite. streaming is still something. I guess, I mean, it's a stream. You could just be very basic and say, well, there's streaming.
It could also be live streaming. I mean, we're getting into the new sports, that's where a lot of people are looking at live streaming. And so, I mean, there could be more push down that path as well.
Well, like what? Like Apple TV having live events on it, live streaming?
Like you could play more. I mean, there's already some of that's happening. MLB is already on your phone, and you're able to watch a lot of those things. But it could be something that's more incorporated into Apple TV.
Apple should buy Lowcast, since Lowcast looks like it's out of business now, thanks to a court decision. Pay the whatever the carriage fees are that the locals and the broadcasters want, and put it on Apple TV. Wouldn't that be great? Then that would sell Apple TVs.
Or anything like a live. I mean, right now I'm using my connection to the broadcast world is through YouTube TV, or a service that would let you watch actual live television on your Apple TV would be, beyond YouTube, would be an added thing for Apple that they haven't done yet. Because YouTube TV is expensive. It's whatever. It's
oh my God, is it expensive? It's $65, and they got me during the Olympics another $20 for 4K. So I'm now paying $85 a month. I can turn it off, but I'm paying $85 a month for YouTube TV.
I will say though, YouTube TV, when you want to watch something, like I have
it's great.
Everything recorded. Like
yes.
I just like yes. So
because it's free.
Free.
Yes. There's no storage.
Like, every time you think, oh, did I watch this week with George Stephanopoulos? Oh no, it's still there.
I've got it. No, it's exactly how I use it.
Yeah, I just hit yes to almost everything, and so I just have this huge collection of stuff. It's much better than cable.
By the way, that's the answer to when cable's losing customers because their prices keep going up, but that's the answer. Service. I'm actually much happier paying $65 a month to YouTube TV than to my cable company because it's a better product.
Yeah,
and 4K makes it even better still.
Yeah, no, you're right. Customer service, and as sketchy as it can be, and when you're dealing with any large company, yeah, the simple fact that I'm forced to contact my broadband provider each and every year to find out what packages are available, because the number of years that I've spent before I started to do this, saying, oh, so what you're saying is that I could be getting 4 times the bandwidth for actually $5 less a month because of new upgrades and new packages. And you didn't, and even though I can't even a new pigeon can't buy my old package, you didn't decide to simply say, oh, by the way, because your old package is no longer available, we just basically are going to charge you the same amount of money for 5 times it. Yeah. So yeah, I get that. Plus the ability to stream it everywhere. Plus, it's cable companies have been kind of Ubered.
They've been Ubered. I like that.
Because it's not like if you had been keeping up, you had everything you needed in order to keep control of this wonderfully lucrative market. But no, you basically decided that we don't have to upgrade, we don't have to adopt new services that people want, we don't have to figure out how to upgrade our customer service. So yeah,
the new watch is big and square. This is from Mark Gurman. 41 millimeters. The watches will, again, rumor. We don't know. We'll find out Tuesday. Watches will be marketed as 41 millimeters and 45 millimeters, which is 1 little millimeter bigger. But that's the vertical dimensions. So it's actually a more significant size increase, right?
Yeah, particularly when you're putting it on your wrist, and at at those dimensions, that could be a turnoff for a lot of people. I don't think it's not enough of a turnoff that people would stop buying Apple Watches, but it might get them to buy the smaller watch instead of the larger watch anymore.
Bigger watch means bigger battery.
Yeah,
it also means more on you can do more on the face. There'll be a new modular Max face, according to Gurman. He's so specific that I have to think this is accurate, right? Nobody's going to say, oh, and Mark, it's going to be called Modular Max. It'll show the time digitally alongside one small complication showing information like the day of the week, outside temperature, or quick access to an app with larger complications that span the length of the screen stacked on top of each other below. There's this basically it's Infograph Modular, which I use because I want to get as much on the face as I can. A face dubbed Continuum will change based on the flow of time.
Like, wow, man.
Wow, man. A world time watch face called Atlas and World Timer internally will let a user see all 24 time zones at the same time.
You do not have that much going on in your life, sir or madam.
I know exactly what time it is in Tuvalu. And
I travel
you would
a
like
lot.
that.
I rarely need more than 3.
Yeah, 24 is a lot. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah.
An external dial shows the time zones. The inner dial shows the time in each location. Users will be able to choose to see the time in either digital or analog. This is apparently, according to Gurman, copying watch faces popularized by Patek Philippe, Breitling, and Vacheron Constantin. Apple's also working on new faces for its Hermes and Nike. Boy, they're really making me pronounce some words these days. And Nike-branded Apple watches. The Hermes version has numbers that change hour by hour, while a new Nike face features numbers that move based on a person's motion. Oh, just what I want. Wait a minute. Hold still. This is only the second time in the history of the Apple Watch the company has bumped up the screen size. We did it in 2018. I get the biggest they have. In fact, I got a 46 millimeter watch face for the Samsung. I want big.
I'd go bigger. They could have 4 or 5 millimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the screen is taking up more percentage of the actual face of the watch.
Right.
It's one of the brilliant design aspects of the Apple Watch in the beginning is that you have no idea how big the actual screen is because it just melts into the case itself. But it's a little bit of once again the disease where it's like, oh my God, this bezel is not as thin as we can possibly make it. We must make it. We don't want people to throw up when they see our screen. We have to make those bezels as tiny as possible. Still affects watches.
New models will feature a faster processor, of course. Case will have flatter edges. The renders I've seen, it really looks like almost like a box. The new screen is designed with a new lamination technique, says Gurman, that brings the display closer to the cover glass. That, among other issues, and you mentioned this, Andy, has led to production hiccups that could either delay the ship date of the Series 7 or result in supply shortages at launch.
I also read a rumor somewhere that I don't know if I believe this, but it's interesting that the new line of watches might have a change to the design of the band that might require a new type of band.
That's going to cost Renee.
Don't know if I believe that because they've got so much money invested into that whole ecosystem. But that would be an interesting move. It more than anything else, it made me think about if they haven't sort of done themselves a dirty deed by having such a popular and lucrative band market that, my God, we really want to change the shape of things a little bit, but we can't because we can't change. There are things we can't change without making this incompatible with previous generations of watch bands. And would they be willing to create a new generation or a new class of watch bands? What would be so important in terms of hardware design or in terms of just fashion design that they would want to introduce like a bifurcation like that?
I have to admit, I played around with a lot of watch bands, and now I'm just using the sports watch band that came with it. I went all over the place, and I bought all these watch bands, and I was just like, oh, this one's
Do you think Apple would make a proprietary connector? I mean, they've got to be looking at all the money they're losing to third-party watch bands. I mean, this one from, I forgot, was it Nomad? This leather band is not an Apple. Apple made no money on it because they didn't patent the. You think they might go proprietary?
What would they win?
Money.
I really. Well, no, but
forget they're in the business.
They make peanuts on. I would think that one of the smartest things about having that design kind of open is knowing that they're not going to be able to figure out every single style that everybody wants, and to get them to buy the next $250 to $500 or $600 watch means that if someone wants to go out with a diamond-studded Michael Kors watch band, they can get that, and they don't have to worry about Michael Kors not necessarily wanting to do a deal with Apple in order to make that happen.
This is Pat and Quill. I just looked. So.
And one thing that does surprise me is that I'm still surprised that certain like high-end watchmakers like Omega, like Philippetique, aren't allowed to. We will let you make an Omega Seamaster watch face because there are people that they're probably not going to have like $20,000 to buy a Rolex Seamaster, but if they might have $40 or $30 to spend getting what is obviously not the real thing, but a very, very good knockoff, a perfect approximation, and maybe that gets you sort of primed the pump to wanting to have an actual Omega, wanting to get an actual Rolex. I'm still surprised overall that Apple doesn't have any sort of mechanism for third parties to simply decide to build their own watch faces and make it happen, because maybe the justification for that is that they want to control the software experience of it because they're Apple, and that's the part that makes the Apple Watch. But nonetheless, I think that given that they've already made these deals with Hermes, saying, okay, we will let you do that, we will let Nike, we will let you do that. It seems like an opportunity for some partnerships that would elevate the brand even further from, hey, here's a really expensive and cool fitness watch, to here is like an entry-level, sophisticated, hey, I'm a weekend yachtsman style timepiece.
What about, there's been a lot of rumors about new redesigned Apple AirPods. You think they'll announce that Tuesday as well? That's the logical place to put it,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Seems like it. Yeah.
And just
I don't know what they.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know what they're going to add. I'm sure it'll be great.
Well,
I'm sure it'll make whatever we have now feel like it's
exactly. You got to get a new one.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
so old. I mean, it looks so stupid. How did I ever watch that? I mean, it's always like when Apple releases stuff, it's like that looks silly, and then you go, okay, then everyone's wearing one, and you're like, okay, that's fine, and then they release a new one, and you're like, that looks silly. It's like circular. It comes back to.
Well, it's different because like every year another like X percentage, probably a double-digit percentage of AirPod users have either like put one of their AirPods through the wash or lost it, and are waiting for and maybe they haven't, like they've said, oh, that's the second pair that I've put through the wash. I'm never buying another pair of AirPods again. Oh, wait a minute, there's a new pair of AirPods with 0.002% greater bass response. Ooh.
I have to go back.
You know, I like responding to bass.
The rumors from last spring, which was the last time they rumored new AirPods, that we're going to have silicone tips on the AirPods, much like the Pros have.
I know my wife just had a because she found one in the washer, and I was like, no.
Yeah. I really think that as soon as Apple goes with silicone tips, every single pair of earbuds I've had, even the wired ones, they seal things out so they
better.
give you they give you free noise cancellation. They sit in the ear canal better. They're a little bit grosser, but you can always pull them off and replace them with ones that fit better. I really think the next big cheap leap for the AirPods is going to be silicone tips.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how far it's gone. You know, I think even I was like, oh, I don't really want to give up wired, but I now. The problem I have right now is that office hours lasts 21 hours. And so a lot of time when I'm working or I'm walking around the house,
you need something light, yeah.
Well, I have the AirPods that last long enough. So I just wear wired headphones again, you know, to because my wife doesn't like, you know, she's in meetings and stuff like that. And so I wear wired headphones, and going back to wired is really hard.
No, you're right. That's one real advantage of Bluetooth. Unfortunately, Qualcomm has announced that they're going to do a new aptX high lossless codec for the next generation of Qualcomm chips, which of course Apple doesn't use. So I don't know how Apple will respond, but that to me will make wireless, you know, that. And there is I don't know, maybe it's just me, but maybe my head is made out of metal or something, but there's a reliability issue to Bluetooth. They drop out, they switch.
Well, I couldn't believe the switching thing. I have a couple iPhones and some iPads and a bunch of other things.
They
get
problem.
very confused.
Yeah.
You know, and
as soon as you walk in the room with an iPad, it says, "Oh, you want to be on that? Okay."
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the worst part is like when it won't connect, and you're like, I have the phone open.
I'm holding it.
Yeah.
And I have the phone app open. Like, why are you not?
I'm glad
why
that's not just me.
Why are we talking? And but what I found interesting was by accident over the weekend, I found that my iPad actually seems obvious now, but it didn't seem. I can walk my entire house with my iPad in a way that I can't do with my phone. So the transmitter is obviously a lot more powerful. You know, so I just put my iPad on in the middle of the house.
Yeah, it's ground zero, and then You have a radius.
Got to figure out central place.
But that is a unique pain point, at least for me. That this is one of the reasons why I'm like, oh, why do you have to why are you not even giving me the option of wired headphones? Because oftentimes, like when I want to listen to music, it's like I'm in a state where, oh God, I just need to take a break. I just want to listen to music. The last thing I want to do in that mode is to have to troubleshoot something. That's not calming me down. That is making me even more like angry with the world and feeling as though on this day I do not count as amongst God's beloved. It's the same reason why a streaming media box has to work so much more reliably than I think any other piece of technology I have, because so many days, Wednesdays and Thursdays are my like more sun up to 8 hours past sundown, like work day, where I get most of the stuff that gets done. And I've booked out like 1 hour maybe that I can have lunch and take a break. And okay, I know exactly. There's a brand new like TechMoan video. There's a brand new Project Minky video. I'm saving it for lunch. And I sit down. Great. I've got my sandwich. I've got my soda that's like icy cold. Pick up the remote, and it can't connect to the internet. And like, you're supposed to calm me down and entertain me and let me take a break from the stresses of my workaday life, and yet you've dropped me right back into the Old Testament. I feel as though I'm not spending my $89 for you streaming box service very, very wisely. So that becomes a factor when it comes to like wireless earbuds and things like that. I love wires because you plug it in, and so long as the laws of physics that make electrons go through copper works, you're good.
And the phone is never confused about what you're attached to.
Exactly.
It's like
Again, that's why I still
or you have a. Sorry, I got the latest the Generation 4 of those Sony noise canceling headphones, and those are the nice ones because they can pair with two different devices simultaneously. And now it's like, oh, but I have 3 or 4 devices I might want to listen to them with. Now I'm gonna have to repair them with something else. It's like it's not the worst problem in the world, but it's like the reason why I really wish I had the option of just plugging in if I want to plug in.
And I still plug in my phones too when I'm on the road. So if I'm driving to LA, I drive to LA most of the time now, and I just when I drive to LA, I just put wired headphones in, and then with a lightning to headphone jack, and then you can charge.
I use a DAC because then I know I'm getting a really good quality. This is $100 digital audio converter. You plug it in to the Lightning port or the USB-C port. It supports either, and then you have headphones. And the problem is you have to carry this thing around, but it's better quality. So I'm surprised you guys don't use DACs, because I think you both have our audio files.
I like it. I'm not convinced that I can really tell the difference, even when it comes to lossless audio.
You can tell the difference between wired and Bluetooth, I'm sure.
Yes, I would say so. But I do. But when I have to buy a brand new album, a brand new released album, so I can't. It's not as though it's been out for 5 or 10 years, and maybe I can buy it on eBay for $3 used. I will buy it in high resolution audio, but I'm even not totally convinced that I can hear the difference between like a lossless CD rip and high res. I keep trying to navigate
I think you're right on that. But the DAC at least allows you to have a CD quality anyway, right?
Maybe I'll try it. But that would be another reason why I think that a lot of people would be complaining about having a portless iPhone. So okay, great. So I'll just have a Bluetooth connection to my $500 DAC. Great, thank you, Apple.
And I have to admit that I notice. I mean, I have the ability to listen to it in a pretty high quality in the office. And I find that I notice spatial a lot more than I notice lossless. So I'll notice when something, and because of what I do, I'd much rather have it in spatial. If someone said you can only have lossless or spatial, I would take spatial over lossless.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. It's like, you can only have, if you had lossless mono versus lossy stereo, you'd probably choose lossy stereo.
I've spent the last year listening to a lot of spatial, and all I can say is that once you get used to it, mono and stereo are kind of the same. Like they're kind of they're all mushy and together. It's cute.
I'm turning into Dvorak because I notice now with every new technology, my take is you don't really need that. But that's terrible.
But I got to say though, you got me. Okay, so this hip, it's only $169.
No, the hip DAC is great. I highly recommend it.
I should try to. I often joke about I'm buying this as research, but you've actually got me thinking that maybe I should see if I can taste the difference.
But then, well, there. See, this is the problem. Now you're going to have to get really good headphones, wired.
Oh, I'm good with that. That's
okay.
fine.
Yeah.
an excuse. Oh, well, my testing is incomplete. I need $600 Sennheiser or whatever.
Yeah. That's what I did.
Hyatt, you'll see. This is why it's so much fun to talk about this stuff, because there is an entirely other orbit where I saw a review of I myself have a digital media DMP, I think they're calling them now, like a digital media player. I have a digital Walkman that carries my entire library, and most of it like either high res or FLAC at this point. But I was like, oh geez, do I really want to spend $200 for it? And I was on YouTube. I was recommended a review of a $2,000 version of this, because it has like all the solid gold contacts and all of the premier sort of audio. I can't even baloney-ize the technology that supposedly justifies $2,000 for this high-end pocketable media player.
Well, do you want?
And you will never make those people happy.
Do you want the $3,000 headphones or the $4,000 headphones? Because then you're really going to hear the difference, Andy. I'm just saying.
Are you buying them for me? Because my birthday's coming up.
No.
Okay,
you know who's reviewed these Stellias, and he's now, I think, reviewing the Utopias, is Scott Wilkinson. And he just raves about them. But yeah, I can't bring myself.
It's hard.
He's the one who turned me onto the iFi hip deck, too.
Yeah, and if I were in my 20s, I might be a little bit more convinced to do it.
That's a good point.
Because I know that my hearing has degraded as hearing does over the decades. Every time I'm confronted with a purchase decision like that, I'm always thinking about, like, let's say that I was in the financial heavyweight that I could spend $4,000 on headphones. I would be more likely to not absolutely dismiss the idea of buying super high premium headphones, but I would think, okay, but let's think about this as $4,000 for the budget on a budget of enjoying music. Would you rather buy much better speakers for your living room? Would you much rather travel to La Scala to see opera in one of the best opera houses in the world? And it would be hard for me to find $4,000 to solve that problem with one pair of headphones. But again, there are people that it will give them I can't necessarily justify for everybody that I have a $1,500 camera with a $2,000 lens.
Exactly.
Well, I just have I got the camera on my iPhone works great. So that's great. I have my relationship with photography is such that I can have a lot more fun with this expensive stuff, and it satisfies that itch. It satisfies that urge much better than a phone camera will. And I have to respect that people who are into audio are exactly the same way.
Yeah. Let's take a little break.
You got me $169. I got $169.
I'm working you up. We'll get you there.
All I can say is that there's still plenty left on Amazon, but there's one less. While you guys were talking,
the other point I would make is, I'm old. I just applied for Medicare, so your hearing is less acute. But there's such a thing as an equalizer that will then boost it in those areas. It's not like you cognitively don't tell the difference anymore. So you can fix it and hear the full range of music. You just boost it up a little bit. I don't think we've lost those frequencies. Right. They're just depleted. You just need as in many things when you get older, a little boost. It doesn't hurt.
The whooshing sounds of the wings of death above you.
I can
noise
hear
cancellation
those.
On that works great.
I can hear those.
Block that out.
Our show today, I'll tell you another thing very important. Fresh air. Our show today brought to you by Molecule. Whether you live in the smoke-filled regions of Northern California, or you're just in an office where the windows can't be opened, or both, clean air is not a luxury. I think it's absolutely vital, and certainly in this day and age, we know that clean air can also be a health issue. Indoor air can be, according to the EPA, up to 5 times worse than outdoor air. The question is, how do you want to clean it? You can get a filter that just traps particles of a certain size, and that certainly works fine. But I have to say, I'm a big fan of this technology that Molecule uses. It's called PICO, and they've really perfected it. Photoelectrochemical oxidation. It uses kind of like a catalytic converter that traps harmful pollutants, tiny ones, and then destroys them with light. It's kind of a miraculous technology. You can read more about it at the Molecule website. It can trap particles too small to be trapped by other filters, viruses, bacteria, mold, chemicals, volatile organic compounds. If you don't believe me, read some of the studies. There was one at Lawrence Berkeley Labs, at Department of Energy test facility, where they showed that the molecule destroys things like formaldehyde in the air, things that really are damaging to you. And if you're in a sealed environment, can be really damaging. The Molecule Air Pro RX has actually received FDA 510K Class 2 medical device clearance for medical purposes because it destroys bacteria and viruses in the air. Now Molecule's offering its breakthrough Pico technology on a broad range of products. When we first started talking about the Molecule, there was just one. We have two at home, one here in the studio. In fact, we got the new big one, the Molecule Air Pro for rooms up to 1,000 square feet. That's what we're using here in the studio. At home, we have the Molecule Air. That's for rooms 600 square feet. There's a Molecule Air Mini. That's new. That's designed for rooms up to 250 square feet, perfect for a bedroom. The Mini Plus also has a sensor that can, an auto protect mode that can adjust fan speed based on the particle sensor. So it'll work harder when the air is dirtier. Cleaner air, I mean, it's just better. Dirty indoor air can contain allergens like dust, pollen, pet dander, volatile organic compounds, bacteria, mold, viruses. Molecule air purifiers don't just capture these offenders, they destroy them. We love our Molecules here in the studio and at home. You will too, and for a limited time you can save up to $120 on Molecule air purifiers by visiting molecule.com, MOLEKULE.com. By the way, I want to point out I bought my Molecules at home. I spent good money. I did not have the $120 offer, so take advantage of this. Use the promo code MacBreak120. Enjoy free shipping and a 30-day home trial on your order. Molecule did send us the Molecule Air Pro that we're using in the studio, which I'm very grateful for. I think, what do we do with the old one? I think, is that one we have in another office? So we have, I think, at least 4 Molecules now. Offer code MacBreak120 gets you up to $120 off Molecule air purifiers. Go to Molecule, MOLEKULE, molecule with a K.com, and read the, learn how it works. It's really fascinating. Read the studies, because I think sometimes people misunderstand what the Molecule does. When you understand what this Pico technology is, it's pretty awesome. Apple is allowing states to add your driver's license to your phone. I'm really nervous about, first of all, California is not one of the states. The first states, I think, are Georgia and Arizona. You can add your state driver's license or state ID to your wallet on your iPhone and on your Apple Watch. Kentucky, Connecticut, Iowa, Maryland, Oklahoma, and Utah will follow. TSA will enable select airport security checkpoints and lanes in participating airports as the first locations customers can use this wallet. Problem with using it is if you're driving down the road, I'd still carry your driver's license with you because the police officer has to have whatever special tool is required to validate it.
Yeah, I'm a lot less worried than I was when this was first being discussed, like about a year ago, because the way that this method works is that you don't have to hand over your phone to the state trooper or whoever. It's all done via device that the trooper or the police officer is actually carrying with them. So
it's called an identity reader, and that is some hardware that I don't know if do they have to get that from Apple. I don't understand.
Yeah, and they're also doing the breadth of what this could be used for is also important. Where if you don't, it's not as though you're going to be living in. For the immediate future, you're not going to be living in a world in which they're going to insist that it's a digital ID that's on a phone. That you could have in situations where you want to get through, let's say TSA as fast as possible, you can just flash your phone and you're in. That you can choose that. If you're in a situation where you would much rather just hand over a piece of plastic that has has just the information on it that this person is required to be able to ask for, you can do that as well. I don't think it's perfect yet, but I think that this is a good first step. And also a good way to keep driver's licenses more secure. The idea that if I lose my phone, I haven't necessarily lost my driver's license. If I lose my physical driver's license, I'm in for a big world of hurt, and that's just for starters having to go to the DMV and get a replacement.
The way it works, you scan the front of your ID and then take a selfie, and then that's sent to the state that issued the ID for authentication. And then I guess the TSA will have a device at selected checkpoints that can read it. So I don't know if it's as quick as going, here, that's me. You still have to somehow, I don't know if they plug it in. I don't know what they do. But yes, you make the most important point, which Apple also makes in their press release, that you do not have to hand over the phone. You, let's see here. Let me, presenting a driver's license or state ID to the TSA. Once added to the wallet, you simply tap your phone or Apple Watch at the identity reader. So I guess it's kind of like Apple Pay. Customers will see a prompt on their device displaying the specific information being requested by the TSA. That, by the way, is also a big part of this is, when you give them your driver's license, you give them everything. If you wanted to use this at a concert or a bar to verify age for buying liquor, it would be nice if you could just give them the birth date. And in fact, that's the plan. Is that you can authorize certain different kinds of information. Only after authorizing with Face ID or Touch ID is the requested identity information released from their device, which ensures that just the required information is shared and only the person who added the driver's license or state ID to the device can present it. You do not need to unlock, show, or hand over your device. I love this. I mean, look, it took a while for Apple Pay to become universal, but now I use it all the time everywhere. I think it's going to be like that. Someday.
And, I mean, if you're validating your phone, your watch, for instance, and it's connected to you, it's probably more secure than you using a card,
exactly.
For that type of thing. So I think that it's definitely the direction all of this is going to go.
It's a standard. There's the ISO 18013/5 MDL mobile driver's license standard, which Apple had a hand in, but it is a open standard. So.
Yeah, right. It is a step forward. There have been times where, like, to check into some place, I need to show like a driver's license, and I'm used to that. Okay, I'll hand. There's like it's a counter, so I have to sort of hand it over so they can get a look at it. And there was one incident in which they took a look at it and then put it into a device and took a scan of it and then handed it back to me. And oh my freaking God, did I create an issue?
That. Yeah,
it's like, well, I did not give you permission to do that. Where is it going? And like, I don't care who is behind me. We're going to have a long discussion about. So the ability to maintain control over the human readable identity stuff that you need to protect, and the idea that there is a higher authority. I'm not talking about faith in my fellow humans protecting that data. That's probably a step in the right direction. I'm just hoping that it doesn't. I'm hoping that there's enough broad support for the standard that it's not just for people who can afford iPhones, not just for people who can afford even mid-range to high-end phones, that even people who have like a $50 contract phone can have this level of security on their identity.
Well, and I think we've come around to the idea that Apple Pay is a safer, more private way to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
We've been doing it for so long now that any ungodly problem that would have brought the entire system down to its knees would have happened by now. So now we can almost implicitly trust it. And now we're at that stage one of state ID. So we're going to have to make sure. This is when all these wonderful theories that mathematicians keep promising us. This is why this is absolutely unbreakable, and why this isn't a problem. And we're not going to find out like a year later that turns out we were using an open source piece of code that's only being maintained by exactly 2 people, and it's 10 years old, and we're not using the latest version of it, and that's why governments A, B, and C now have every single driver's license that's ever been used ever and by the TSA at this airport.
Some universities are using it for ID. Apple at the end of the press release says, coming soon, Wallet will also provide access to customers' home, apartment, and hotel keys, as well as corporate badges.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point you're going to get to a point where you don't really even pull out your phone. There is a you have a status, that's connected to you, which might be your passport information, your passport, your local.
But you don't want to be broadcasting it, though, Alex, right?
I don't think you have to. I think it can be something that, right now technically it's RFID in your passport.
Right.
So you're technically broadcasting.
I guess you are, yeah.
So unless you hit it with a hammer under a cloth and microwave it. Not that I would ever do anything like that. So
by the way, how does that work out for you? Do people say, "Hey, your passport's broken"?
Yeah, they say your passport's broken, and you go, "Okay, but can you read it?" And they're like, "Yeah," and then you keep going. It's inconvenient. It doesn't mean it's not legally required, and
I must have accidentally microwaved it, officer. I'm sorry.
Well, you can't microwave it too long or leave burn marks. So anyway, so
all right, but keeping it underneath my tinfoil hat.
Yeah, exactly. The hammer, I think the hammer does the work. So anyway, so the key is the cloth, so you don't leave hammer marks. Anyway,
not that we would encourage or tell you in any way how to do this, but.
Exactly. So anyway, so you're already broadcasting that out. Let's go back to that. And the main thing, though, is having a device. It's actually far more secure. If you think about, I'm handing somebody something, I'm handing them my credit card, which is only done in the United States. I mean, when you leave the country, no one does that. Take your credit card away.
No, they come to you with a thing.
They come to you and they do the thing. But the main thing is that now you can say, there's a secure relationship between my electronic device and their device. Now, of course, we have to worry about whether that's secure, but the stuff we're doing now isn't very secure. So now we have this secure connection between it, and it only gives it the information that it needs to let you know whether you go to the concert, the conference, or get on a plane. All of those things can be tied into permissions that are handed to you. Now, it will make it more complicated when it doesn't work. That's the biggest problem with all of these is that right now, like for instance, I when I work on events, they give you little wristbands, and so you get a little colored wristband, and you get a different colored wristband for every day, and I don't take any of them off until the event's over. So when I'll have like this stack of wristbands on one arm, and people ask me why, is because when they screw up and they lose my name and say you can't come in to this area, I'm like, really? Because I've been here the last 5 days.
Right.
Are we really saying I can't come?
See all these colorful bands? I can't sleep with those on. I hate those. Those scratch me.
Well, the key is that they have to. You don't let them put the wristband on. You have to line it up. You have to line the edges up.
Yeah,
perfectly.
Yeah. They don't.
If you let them do it, they're
in a hurry. Yeah. Actually, that's how we got into Hawaii in July. Was you would go to the desk, you would show your vaccine QR code, they'd give you a wristband, and I wore it on the plane. Yeah, it doesn't seem very secure.
when I was at a concert, we were working at a concert in Africa, and our audio engineer literally we were missing one person, and we were like, we need to get him in to the thing, and he went to his office, and he literally had kept every wristband that he had ever gotten in this room, and he goes, which one are we looking for here? And
my God.
Because they were like, this one was like designed with stars, and it was holographic. But he's like, oh, here it is. And he looked at it, it was exactly the right one, and then we taped it to the.
Oh my God.
So it was the funniest thing that he goes, I can get into anything because I just have the right wristbands.
Saved all the wristbands.
It was a big long stack of them, like hundreds of wristbands. Yeah. So
talk about insecure. You may remember DEF CON in 2019. A hacker named MG showed a cable he had made. Looks exactly like a standard Lightning to Type-C cable, but it contains inside it a radio which broadcasts as far as a mile, he says, everything that is going through that Type-C or Lightning cable. He said they're now being mass-produced. Good news. How exciting. You could just go right to Hack 5's store and buy them now. Thank you, Darren. The set of cables MG provided a motherboard for testing, also included a black USB to USB-C cable. Here's the cables he gave motherboard. I guess the key here is that the radio electronics are small enough now they can fit into what looks like a completely normal cable.
Yeah, it's the end is not even longer. We've seen these things before, but usually it's like, oh, why is the Lightning end of this about a centimeter longer than I'm used to seeing? This does look like a normal one. I can't wait to see testers actually see if this can do what he's claiming it can do, because a mile transmission on a tiny, tiny chip like that, even if it's using part of the cable itself as an antenna and taking power from the host device, that seems a little ambitious. I'm sure that I don't have my connection between my iPad and my home router is not going to be 1 mile unless if one of them is on Mount Washington and the other one is on a blimp 1 mile away from Mount Washington. But we'll find out.
How do you feel about Darren selling these to anybody who wants them? I mean, that seems he sells a lot of hacking stuff.
Yeah,
and always with the kind of smirky, well, this is so you can do your own pen testing and stuff like that.
That's a lot of engineering for someone who just. It's not a hack. This is a commercially made product.
Yeah, it's $25
stuff
from Mischief Gadgets.
Yeah,
MG.
So I don't know, but it tests a lot of core
wait a minute,
beliefs.
it's a little more than that. It's $139.99.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, it tests a lot of core beliefs of mine where it's like you can't stop someone from. You can't. Do you stop everybody from making everything that could potentially be used for bad things, as opposed to I want you to have an example of technology that I'm sure that bad people are going to have, so you can see how that would affect you and your workplace or your client's workplace. Or as if you're being paid to do a penetration test on a corporation, you should have the same tools that the bad people should have. There's definitely an argument to be made that there's a good reason for these things to exist. However, given that this is getting a lot of press, how likely is it that in addition to the people who have legitimate reason to have this, you're also going to have a whole bunch of knuckleheads who are like, oh, look, I bought this cable and I put it onto like my boss's computer and now I can like see all of his passwords. The
cable.
I fear knuckleheads more than I fear like real.
Well, that's
criminals.
the thing. I mean, when you start selling this stuff in a store,
right, exactly.
Anybody can buy it. The cable comes with a web server, an 802.11 radio. It also they also sell one that with the keylogger edition retains full features of the standard OMG cable and adds a keylogger capable of storing up to 650,000 keystrokes. Of course, you'd have to go and get it.
Well, I also think that, it's not a good idea to plug your phone into cables that you don't know. Like
that's one of the reasons. Main reason I'm mentioning this. That's the main reason, just as a warning.
Is just that these things are out there, and it's if it's not the cable is dramatic to have a cable doing it, but the fixtures have been a problem for a long time. As the fixtures are a real point of, you go to a airport, right, exactly. Or you go to a hotel or a convention or a whatever
free
it is.
Charging station.
Free charging stations. I have finally broken down and I plug it into the car every once in a while, but only only with one of my phones, and I plug it. Everything else gets plugged into the lighter. The lighter has a,
you can buy inexpensively. In fact, Steve Gibson recommended it, and I bought a few of them. He calls them cable condoms, which just only have the wiring for the charging, nothing else. So you could put the cable into that, then plug it into anywhere and charge.
You go to a really nice event. One of the things they do is they have a little like box in the center of the table, little cables pulling out. And
of all people, Steve Gibson's the last guy is going to plug it into that, but he uses that condom and then does it. Yeah. So I think that's the thing. People should just really be aware that is an easy way in. Very easy now. You could buy it online.
For most things, that's the one thing that will get into your iPhone is a physical connection. Is the thing you have to be the most sure of. So it's definitely not. I mean, I carry around my battery, and I only for the most part I only use Apple chargers in the field. Like when I leave, I use Apple cables,
right?
Or I use braided cables because most people don't have them. So I have braided cables that are hard to find. And so if I
like them. I only buy braided cables. Yeah, I prefer them.
I love braided cables.
They're beautiful, and they last longer, and they're gorgeous. And then they're your cables.
Yes.
So just a public service announcement, kids, don't plug into unknown ports.
And hey, while we're at it, don't copy that floppy.
Don't copy that floppy.
Home recording is killing the cassette industry.
Don't plug in unknown ports. There we go.
Don't plug in unknown ports. It's always risky. But not, at least if you do, if you have to, use a cable condom. couple more short stories because I want to take a break and then get into the deeper stories, the CSAM and the App Store updates. Germany wants Apple to update and repair iPhones for 7 years. This is ongoing, requirements from the EU. It was because of the EU, I think, that Apple stopped putting the charger in the box. Yeah. This is a new proposal, not yet a law. And they also, this is actually, I'm kind of behind this. They want updates and spare parts for the iPhone for at least 7 years at a, quote, reasonable price. We'll see if they do it.
Yeah, it's a little bit more. I think the EU wants 5 years, and they're not necessarily talking about full iOS updates. They're talking about security updates for X number of years.
Yeah,
they're
it's
also
not the iPhone, because the iPhone is well within that. But it's Android devices that they're talking about, I think.
Right, exactly. And even there, they're not the right to repair legislation in the EU, and I think also in Germany, they're not necessarily talking about, oh, well, there's a controller chip inside there that you need to be able to sell to third parties. They're talking about the things that tend to wear out after 5 years. So they're talking about they need to be able to provide a source for replacement screens, replacement batteries, that sort of thing.
Right to repair is moving along in the U.S. as well. In fact, the FTC is pushing for it as well. So I think that's going to happen.
It's becoming harder for companies like Samsung and Apple and Google to argue against, because they are not asking for completely unreasonable and undoable things. They're asking for things that are inconvenient that will actually, I think, help users and help the community a lot.
I just bought a really nice laptop called the Framework. I'll do a review on it in a couple of weeks. It came, and I put Manjaro Linux on it, and it is now my favorite laptop. I wish it had the battery life of the M1. Right. Nothing does. But it's got 3 or 4 or 5 hours, depending on what I'm doing with it, which is fine. But it's a really nice laptop. And you open it up. They even provide the Torx screwdriver to take the screws out and open it up. The screws, by the way, I love it. What do they call that when they don't fall out? They're
captive screws.
Captive. Yeah. I love that. So you open it up. Magnets hold that panel on. Magnets hold the keyboard onto the top part of it, so it's easy to remove stuff. And everything's QR coded. And they sell. And for the most part, memory and hard drive, for instance, are stock, so you can easily replace those. And then they have QR codes for everything else, including the motherboard. The motherboard is removable. The battery is removable. And obviously Framework would have to sell the battery and motherboard, because I think those are probably proprietary form factor. But I love it. And it's a great laptop. So it's doable.
It's going to be an interesting case study, I think, because it's already kind of disproven a couple of the arguments against unrepairable MacBooks and other products. Because you look at this and it looks like a completely it doesn't look like a Soviet, 1983. No. Everything done with bolts. It's about the same size, shape, thickness.
It's just
weight
like a Dell
as
XPS 13. It's a 13-inch. It's 3x2 screen, which I prefer. I think they've done it, and they have physical. Switches for the microphone and the camera, so it's easy to.
That's very big.
This is well thought out. I mean, they're using they're not using Core Boot or anything like that. They're using a stock Intel processor and Intel BIOS, but still, this is really impressive, and it runs Linux perfectly, flawlessly, including the fingerprint reader. So you could put Windows on it. You probably could Hackintosh it. I think people are doing that. I don't recommend that, but I'm very happy with it.
Yeah.
I'm curious about
later. Please. I'm very curious about the business model, because
that's why I bought it. I wanted to
support them.
I really want to support them.
Yeah, exactly. And wouldn't it be nice if, like, 2 or 3 years down the line, like, you've already been, oh, geez, I need more memory. You bought more memory. Oh, geez, I need more storage. I bought more storage. And then 2 or 3 years later, oh, wow, I actually now have a need for a really high power 2025 level CPU.
That will be the test.
Sell you a brand new motherboard.
That will be the test. In 5 years, when I could take that motherboard out and put a new one in, if they have to still be around, I admit. But I can't buy more RAM. It's stock RAM. It's stock hard drive. It's a Western Digital hard drive, but you could use anyone. It's just an M.2 NVMe drive.
I like that it has essentially, if my understanding is correct, that for like internal USB-C ports, but what connectors it actually plugs into are these pieces of Lego that you can just snap in. So if you want it to be a display port, it can be display port. If you want it to be USB Type A, it can be USB Type A.
That's exactly right. I bought and I love that, because I could have, as I do, a USB-C charging port on both sides. So I got two USB-C modules. They just little modules that plug in, a USB-A, because that still comes up for me, and an HDMI port. And I bought the DIY version, so I did it all myself, and it was trivially easy. The only hard thing is putting in the Wi-Fi module, because you have to get the antennas and everything. Yeah,
I think Apple's part probably when they say in the quarterlies that they're talking about the problem with legacy components, I don't think there's going to be a lot of components that come out of the computer much longer. I think Apple's is on the road to getting rid of everything that they don't.
Yeah. But you know what? We talked about this before. Now you have a choice. You can get a highly proprietary but amazing M1, Apple Silicon-based laptop with 12-hour battery life, or you can opt for, and I go back and forth, but I really love the idea of kind of non-proprietary, repairable open. This iFixit gave Framework a 10 out of 10 on the repairability. That's as pretty good as you can get.
I value my time.
This didn't. I like open. I'm a Linux guy. I really do like open.
It would still be nice if Apple, even without getting pressure from regulators, if they decided that there was a time where they did not spend 1 minute out of every keynote talking about recyclability of components and how green these things are. It would be nice if there were as one of the parentheticals at the end of the big dog and pony show was, and by the way, this has got the highest repairability score on iFixit of any MacBook that we've ever sold. Okay, yes,
that
it's 4 instead of 2, but still the idea that they're thinking about this, if they're just thinking that, well, you know what, we don't actually have to put construction adhesive down to hold the battery in so that the thing explodes if you try to replace the battery. We decided that's kind of a jerk move, and maybe we can just let future generations replace a battery without losing their eyebrows.
Well, you do have a choice, and I guess that's exactly the point. But I'm pretty sure that when they announced the 16-inch MacBook Pro with the M1X,
the all Velcro edition,
I will be in line to get one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Apple is going to face a privacy lawsuit. It's not just Apple, actually. Everybody is going to face a privacy lawsuit. This is for Siri. A judge has ruled that Apple has to face nearly all of a proposed class action lawsuit, claiming that its voice-activated Siri violates users' privacy because the plaintiffs say it records private conversations due to accidental activations, and that those conversations are sent to third parties. It's not just Apple. It's pretty much all three.
I think someone got convicted of, or they were at least in case for murder, with their Amazon. It wasn't Apple. It was the Amazon Echo. Yeah. And so I think that it gets complicated, if it gets close. And it is. I will say that it's super weird when you're watching a movie and suddenly you hear Apple's device go,
all the time.
And you're like, it is. And you're like, I don't know what it is. There was some movie that there was somebody's name that activated it constantly, and it was like, okay, that's super weird, and we unplugged it because it was just like that's like super weird that she just keeps on saying hi.
You can rename your Echo Ziggy, and I thought that was cool, so I did, and I still, because Apple has you say hey first, every once in a while I'll say hey Ziggy, and invariably Siri wakes up.
Right.
It's close enough.
Yeah.
So
it's tough. The terms of this lawsuit are part of it is that once again there's the persistent belief that because I had a private conversation with somebody on day 1 and on day 2 I was getting ads for things that we talked about during the conversation. The only way that they could have made that correlation is because the microphone was on and the phone was doing speech to text and transmitting information. It's going to be a new level of scary when in a court of law, as part of defending themselves from this suit, Google has to say, no, we're really just that good at figuring out via context what you might have talked about and what you might be interested in hearing right now. We don't have to access the microphone.
Well,
all we have to do
this is something I think Apple could demolish. This is actually part of the Apple class action. One Siri user said his private discussions with his doctor about brand name surgical treatment caused him to receive targeted ads for that treatment. Well, not only would you have to assume that Apple's listening and recording, but then they're passing it along because Apple doesn't do ads for.
And the thing is that you went to the office of a specialist who distributes this drug.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Like, okay.
Yeah, Google might have noticed that. Yeah.
The other thing is that like, for instance, if someone is searching a bunch of things and then becomes in your proximity, it can start inferring that you might be talking about things that they search. So it can draw those connections between individuals, your location, your doctor, the type of doctor, the type of things that they so that all that data is all flowing around, and so it doesn't need something silly like listening to your conversation to understand what it needs to.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yeah, I'm always skeptical when people say no, I know it's listening to me because. But that's exactly what you're going to hear.
But it's good that people learn how. It's good that people learn how these things work.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like solving an equation with 54 variables in it. Even if they think, with 54 unknown variables, they can't solve this equation. Yeah, but they have 200 pieces of data that they can use to try to solve for those 54 different variables. They're going to get it.
The judge said plaintiffs could pursue claims that Apple violated the Federal Wiretap Act, California privacy law, and committed breach of contract. He did throw out, and I'm not sure, an unfair competition claim. I don't know where that.
Okay,
I don't know.
Just by default.
Yeah, just throw.
His finger slipped when he was typing Apple and Google. It just found out. Antitrust. Oh, damn it! It's already been printed. Oh well.
I do think that the wiretapping thing is a little complicated, for all of these services because they are recording and they're not announcing it. And the question is do you assume when you put one in and you start talking to it, are you assuming you're losing some privacy or the ability for it to do that? And I don't know if you do, but I think that like I do, I don't put my smart assistants everywhere in my house, so there's places that I prefer not to have an assistant, and mine are all in the kitchen. So the which maybe not be better at talking while I'm cooking, anyway. So I think that it's interesting. It's an interesting problem of recording because in most states it's illegal to record without telling somebody.
Right.
That is a angle.
I do think that the main solution to this is going to be transparency. That one thing that Google is second only to the Antichrist itself when it comes to collecting people's personal data. However, they're also very good in saying if you want to see every recording we've ever made from your smart device, here it is. Not only that, but you can actually listen to the recording itself. So if you are shocked, horrified, and you want to throw our devices in a fire, you are now free to do that, and or delete all this stuff that we have actually collected from you. So there are things you can't really make a smart assistant that is so good at discerning the hot word from something that's kind of has the same musical sense as the hot word, particularly given that you've got this tiny low power system on a chip that's responsible for that and nothing else than that. But people have to know if you can't just simply blindly trust any company, be it Google, be it Apple, be it Amazon, be it anybody. You have to understand exactly what's involved in the transaction so that you can decide what your ick factor is.
And it's not just the data that they're collecting; it's the data that they're buying. So they're constantly buying. They're buying your data from the television that you bought. They're buying data from the Safeway that you went to shop in. They're buying data from the credit cards. They're buying data. That's why all those GDPR things are a big deal. It's like, can we sell your data? What are they doing? They're packaging that data up and selling it back to Google and Facebook so they can get a better trajectory. So, all of those things are things that they're all of those things they're collecting, and the stuff that they're collecting directly is what they tell you.
Do you think Apple is not collecting it and not passing it on?
I don't know. No, Apple's not passing it on.
They're not passing it on.
Apple would the only reason that they would keep the data is so they can figure out why it said that, so they can improve the trajectory of it, but they have no reason to keep it. They don't want to. Yeah.
Let's take a little break. More to come. Alex Lindsay's here from Office Hours, officehours.global. Alex, I'm sure you've got some exciting stuff you're covering. You want to give us a little plug?
I mean, we're just having so much fun with it. It was a long day on Saturday. We went 11 hours of the regular show.
Jeez.
And then we had the after hours because we started with the regular show, and then we have like 2 hours where we talk. We have educators, people it's becoming more and more like administrators and teachers and everything else, and we don't stream that, so you can't see it because they felt like they didn't want to put it all on YouTube.
Good.
So there's
private.
a lot of conversations like, okay, so how does, like, we're having conversations on Saturday mornings about, well, how does online learning affect the financial models of of the traditional brick and mortar schools, and what does that mean, and what's sustainable, and so you get into these really deep conversations on Saturday morning. So then came out of that, and we have this thing that we're calling the Belfast Project, because we started in a bar in Belfast, and or not Belfast Project, but it's called the Belfast Method. We changed away from Belfast Project is something else that we decided not to use. So the Belfast Method is
there is no Belfast Project. Forget I ever said Belfast Project.
Belfast Project, and the Belfast Project is related to the Troubles, and so we decided to change it to the Belfast Method.
That's smart. Yeah.
So but what we're figuring out is, how do you run a show? And in this case, there was an artist, Todd Reynolds, who we've worked with in the past, and we're taking over like his switcher and his all kinds of other stuff. People all over the world are like running his show in his house, from remotely. And so everyone's figuring it out. You get to watch and listen to the comms, and they're streaming it to YouTube, and you get to see all the stuff that's there. And then of course we shifted gears again. I made this really good lentil a lentil cake. It's amazing. So good. There's me, following along and trying to figure it out. And so Damayanti Gajar, who's in South Africa, she's teaching us how to make this lentil dish that was amazing. And it took us like 2 hours. Like, we put this all together. We made that.
That's my only problem with Indian cooking, is it's very labor intensive.
Well, I have to admit that we got about halfway through, and we had done the lentils and the onions and everything else, and I was like, I could just eat this as a soup.
Yeah.
It would
stop now.
It was so good. It was like this curry, and I was like, this is fine right here. And then we kept going, and it was even better. Anyway, and then we switched to the remotes, which the remotes is our own band. So they so they had a new song.
You got to rename this Sabado Gigantico, I think.
So, but the thing is that we finished all of those things, and we finished about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it started at 5 in the morning, and so 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then then we went to after hours, and then people were talking into the evening, and hanging out, talking about stuff. So the big thing is that it's so amazing that there's so much information going back and forth, because the folks that are in office hours are getting smarter, but also the kind of folks that are continually coming in. We had a guy that was, I don't know if you know what a flame is. Do you know what a flame is, Leo? I don't know.
Flame as in Flame Wars, or? Oh,
no, Autodesk makes a
Flame. Yeah, we used to use Flame at Tech TV. It was in the day a very expensive graphics effects box. Yeah.
Hanging out with us, and we were like, "What do you do during the day?" He's like, "I'm a flame operator."
Wow.
So, but it's like that. Oh, I'm working on. We had a whole bunch of people working at the Olympics, and so they come back, and we learn a bunch of stuff, and so there's people working in broadcast, but there's also there's literally, and then there's all these teachers that are coming in, and they're asking technical questions with folks that have a lot of technical background, but they're bringing this perspective of teaching, and then we have people who are teaching us how to cook. So it's a very interesting community.
Do people still use Flame? I thought it was completely
it's software only.
Okay.
So it's still.
Oh yeah, it used to be hardware, didn't it? Yeah.
It's very powerful, and it's still out there, and it's still really, they've moved to a subscription model like everybody else, but the subscription model for Flame is like $12,000 a year.
If you need it,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Andy Anako is also with us, of course, from WGBH and places west and east and north and south. When are you going to be on GBH next?
Friday at 12:30 in the afternoon. I have to ask Alex, just to satisfy curiosity, who was the first one to get an office hours tattoo, and where was it?
We don't have them yet. We're working on it. We're still going to finalize the logo, but there's a lot of.
I'm telling you got to. I think Sabado Gigantico is available. You should just rename the whole thing.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my God! Do search on YouTube. Sabado Gigante Internacional is this Univision variety show that is like the most. All they want to do is make sure that everybody has fun, no matter what the expense to the hosts or the staff's personal
It ran for 53 years. It ended in 2015. It was long, as I remember. It was many hours of a Saturday.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was very much like what you're doing.
They pump
here.
pure oxygen into the studio all the time. It was,
Sabado Gigante. That's it.
You can take off something.
I used to watch it with my dad all the time because it was like one of the few intersections of our TV tastes.
Yeah.
Like, hey, Sabado Gigante International.
I didn't really understand the language, but you could tell they were having fun. That was the
joy.
That was the main point, right?
Questions about
Everything. It was like every TV show ever in one.
Fat 52-year-old man in a diaper. Yep, go ahead. And a baby bottle. Yep, there you go.
It's like we talk about media and education and everything else, but I got up a couple mornings ago and I was like, because I turn it on when I'm making my coffee and everything else, and someone was there troubleshooting a router.
Sure.
Someone's got a router and they're trying to figure out why it's not passing data. It was amazing. So, anyway.
All right. Our show today brought to you by, let me see here. Oh, AT&T. If there are friends and family members you haven't talked to in a while, don't worry. It's never too late to reconnect. To help, AT&T is offering deals on the latest smartphones. Wonder what those could be. It's not complicated. Everyone deserves something new, so AT&T is giving new and existing customers their best deals on every smartphone, even the latest ones. Restrictions and exceptions may apply. Visit att.com for details. We thanks AT&T for their support. All right, we should talk about this because really I kind of buried the lead. The two big stories of the week. Apple has delayed the rollout of their child pornography detection system and the child safety features, all three features that they announced with some fanfare and a lot of criticism last month. In a statement in 9 to 5 Mac, they said, last month we announced plans for features intended to help protect children from predators who use communications tools to recruit and exploit them and limit the spread of child sexual abuse material based on feedback from customers, advocacy groups, researchers, and others. We have decided to take additional time over the coming months to collect input and make improvements before releasing these critically important child safety features.
Yeah.
They blinked.
Good for them. Yeah, again, good for them. That's not something we normally associate with Apple. We associate with them with like sticking to their guns for a time and then quietly backing down when the marketplace tells them no, hell no. But the fact that it's sort of like when was it the old quote that when Nixon realized that he'd lost Walter Cronkite, he realized he lost the presidency. Apple realized that so many advocacy groups for privacy and security that have almost impeccable credentials were still not just they weren't saying that, oh, we're concerned about this. They were still vehemently against it, and they realized that either that gave them a sort of a come to God moment of, oh, maybe we should back off and rethink this, maybe we did have the wrong attitude, or just simply realizing that we are not going to be able to move forward with this unless we have sign-in from these outside agencies, because their opinions have a lot of weight and they definitely matter.
It is the case that the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in a revealed private memo to Apple said, don't listen to those shrieking voices. They knew there would be heat on this. Do you think Apple is going to rethink it or drop it?
I think that they're going to I don't think they're going to drop it, because it is an important it's an important consideration. They can do a lot of good by putting these kind of protections in. I wouldn't be surprised if they reintroduce it and simply remove the on-device component of it. Even when they were doing damage control, and Craig Federighi was giving one-to-one interviews with lots of people, he still did not have a good explanation for why is it that doing this on-device is more safe, more secure, more private than doing it once these pictures appear on iCloud servers. He was trying to make the case explicitly that, oh, well, geez, Google Photos scans every single photo that is on this service. We're only scanning the photos that people are choosing to upload, not taking either he was speaking too fast, really appreciate that he was saying that this is exactly the exact same thing, that every single photo that goes onto that server is scanned before it is sort of accepted into the cloud.
Had they done what Google, Facebook, Microsoft, and Dropbox already do, scan stuff stored on their servers, I don't think they would have gotten the same heat.
I don't think any of us would have been freaking out about.
It was putting it on the phone that was the problem.
And also that I'm still surprised that, boy, did they just step on a rake jumping off of a ladder with both feet. The way that they introduced this, they allowed the story to get ahead of them. They're so vague about what they were about to do that they really allowed a lot of concerned people to say, wait, are you saying that every photo that's on my device is going to be scanned for potential child endangering material? Because if that's so, I'm setting fire to my iPhone right now. And later on, they realized that, we needed to explain in detail exactly what it is that we're doing, that no, there are two separate components. Excuse me, there are three separate components to this. We're not turning our Apple smart speakers into tattletales on what's going on inside your house. No, we are not searching every single picture that comes in through iMessage for child endangerment material that needs to be reported to police. No, we are not turning your phone into an active warrantless search for possible evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Here is what we're doing, and they're three separate firewall different things that are happening for three different sorts of things. And again, they're doing what they're trying to accomplish is overdue and does a very important thing. But once again, I think they're used to thinking in a vacuum. They're also, I might even have been Renee who first suggested this when we were talking about this a month ago, that their dogma, their corporate mentality is that anything that you do on the device and not in the cloud is by nature more private and more secure than something that happens on a server. And that might have tripped them up into thinking that, no, of course, if we're going to be scanning stuff, we should be scanning it before it goes onto our servers and not after it lands on the servers.
And I think that one of the FBI big things they keep on talking about is child pornography. So it's like this sore little thing that they keep on jabbing Apple with, like, we have to have access to the phone. We have to have access to the phone. They keep on jabbing Apple about it. So Apple tries to do something about it. And, it's just with the content that everyone is against, or almost everybody is against, content, but
let's stipulate that. We all agree.
Yep. There's obviously somebody doing it, so they're not against it.
Yeah.
But everybody we know is against it.
By the way, anybody who wanted to do it was given fair warning by Apple and knows how to not get in trouble with Apple. So I don't think this would have had much effect either.
But I would be surprised. Given the pushback, I think it might be a long time, like years, before they come back to it. It's one of those things that this is the face-saving way of saying, hey, we're going to study some more, and then they're going to study some more next spring, and then they're going to hope that no one talks about it again.
As Gruber pointed out, this is you can say that Apple did the right thing. They didn't just ship it. They told people, and they let the conversation begin. They heard the screeching voices of the minority. That was the term the NECMEC folks used. And listened to them and said, okay, fine. I wonder if they'll come back. My thought is, not confirmed by any information from Apple, but that Apple was about to release end-to-end encryption on iCloud and said, before we do that, we've got to give a SOP to law enforcement. And so we have to announce this technology that will, and that's why they did it pre-uploading it. They're not going to scan the iCloud because they want that to be fully encrypted. So they scan it on your phone.
They are scanning. I think they are scanning the iPhone. They're scanning the cloud right now, right?
Are they already doing that? No, they're doing some stuff.
I think the only thing they're scanning is mail. I don't think they're scanning iCloud Photos content.
Google scans mail with the NECMEC database.
Right, exactly.
As well as Google Drive. Yeah.
And also remember that iCloud backups aren't encrypted anyway, or rather Apple will
They're
turn
encrypted,
over
but
iCloud
Apple has
data.
the key. Right, yeah.
Right, exactly. So Apple will, with the right, if you present the right paperwork.
A few months ago, Apple supposedly, the story was about to roll out end-to-end encryption and was talked out of it by law enforcement. They've wanted to do, because if you end-to-end, with the San Bernardino shooter, they told the FBI, we're not going to help you decrypt the phone because the phone is sacrosanct. But if you had just taken the phone back to his premises and let it upload to iCloud, we'd have been glad to hand you everything that was on iCloud. But Apple doesn't want to be in that position. So it's my opinion that this was in order to get end-to-end encryption to be somewhat acceptable to law enforcement, they had to do this. But what they I think they underestimated how people would feel about this scanning happening on the phone.
Yeah,
they don't want it going on the phone. Also,
if law enforcement, the one thing that it does point out is that if law enforcement thinks that people are going to be okay with back doors to the phone, this is the worst kind of content possible. Just, that's there, and they're against it. They're going to be against everything else. Like you can be, so if law enforcement, maybe it's a good communication to law enforcement, like, hey, we're really serious about this because it is completely indefensible content, and we're still like, we don't want you on the phone, And so I think that it's going to be very difficult for law enforcement. I think in some ways it strengthens Apple's discussion with law enforcement of like, hey, people are really not interested in this,
Well, there's also the question that now Apple has said we could do it if countries, including the U.S., aren't going to come to them and say, hey, you told us you could do it. You got to do it. And I could see China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, I can see them absolutely.
No, I think it's letting the cat is not out of the bag, but you're hanging on with the back leg now. The cat's struggling, that's the hard part.
This is going to. I won't turn this into a whole thing, but this is a problem that's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We're within the next 5 years, Apple and Google and all these other companies are going to have their first big test case where government orders them to do something that they are going to that would absolutely render their product horrible to all of their users, and they're going to have to ask, is it okay if I say no to this market simply because China is asking us to do something that is completely 100% counter to everything that we've ever stood for, and it's going to happen sooner rather than later. And I hope it doesn't happen first in the United States, where there's as Alex is saying, a law requiring a backdoor into phones. All we're waiting for is the wrong sort of presidential administration to get a second term before that becomes a really, really big threat. It's
going to happen in Australia. It's happened in England. It's probably going to happen in Canada. It's happening all around us. The Five Eyes are doing it. I think it's going to happen.
The intelligence agencies are just, and again, in defense of the intelligence agencies, they are, they keep the fact that we don't have to have AK-47s on every corner, and we don't have walls around our house. I work in countries where we do, and that happens all the time. And the reason is because they're quietly cleaning things up around us with all this data. So there is a reason for that data to exist. I don't want to say that it doesn't, but at the same time, we do have to set some limits to what we're doing. And for them, they're only interested in what happens is in a meeting in DC or Langley or whatever, they're getting blamed for the next terrorist act. They don't get to give excuses of, well, we can't get into the phone and we can't do this. It's all their fault. It's an intelligence failure. It's a blah, 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 all those things. And so all they care about is making sure that they provide as close to absolute safety as they can, and getting into the phone is part of that equation. And so I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time on our side, we are, we're going to reach a pretty complicated time for governments because they're becoming less important, and they're going to thrash, and we don't want to be, we need to be able to protect ourselves, from the governments, because they're going to thrash as the nation states start to unwind, because they don't mean as much as they used to. And that's going to be problematic. And as citizens in these countries, we have to know that we cannot just trust our government to protect us, and we have to do that ourselves with our privacy.
Yeah, and to put a button on it, we also shouldn't leave without acknowledging that the trafficking of abuse material against children has not been increasing in an incremental way. It has been increasing by larger and larger leaps every year, largely because of savvy traffickers know how to do it without getting caught. Even one of the most surprising statistics here is that the easiest way to get caught is to use Facebook to exchange this material. And even Facebook is getting more than tens and tens of millions of reports that they're making to law enforcement on this each and every year. It's just getting worse and worse. So there might actually become a point in which we revisit this as a culture and decide that here is where we are willing to give up. Here's where we're willing to weaken a little bit in order to stem what we see as a much bigger problem than law enforcement being able to peek at our phones. I don't see it right now, but if things keep getting worse and worse and worse, where it becomes impossible to prosecute somebody for some of these a horrible crime because of limitations made by tech, and if researchers, I'm saying independent researchers with no skin in the game, say that actually we think we have a system that will actually work, so long as there's a legal framework that firewalls around it to protect it from being misused, we should at least be willing to listen and have that discussion at least.
All it's going to take is, here we are in the 20th anniversary of 9/11. All it's going to take is another 9/11 and it's over. And I think that's inevitable, to be honest with you. It's between terrorism and child pornography, law enforcement. And I agree with you 100%, Alex. They're doing it out of a patriotic desire to protect children and to protect all of us. So I don't think they're evil. But I also understand how, we put everything in this phone. This phone is a new concept.
I mean, you'll notice that intelligence agencies aren't complaining about Facebook.
They love Facebook. They love Facebook.
Are complaining about intelligence agencies.
CIA is a big investor in Facebook. Are you kidding?
There are not a lot of comments there because it's super useful.
Yeah.
Johnny Law loves the Ring doorbell. They would think they should be sold for $18 each. If everybody could have a Ring doorbell on their door frame, boy, wouldn't that be wonderful?
Well, and privacy advocates, are going crazy right now because Proton Mail handed over the IP address of a climate activist in France. Everybody thought they were secure there. Hey, by the way, just a tip: you're not secure if you're using email. Period. At least metadata is leaked. And then there's a ProPublica story about WhatsApp. Actually having 1,000 employees monitoring the content of messages. WhatsApp's denying this, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. I think the smart thing to do would be to assume you're not private, and if you are a dissident in a country where that's a dangerous thing to be, you really need to learn your security, OPSEC and you got to be very careful. And to say, I'm using an iPhone, I'm safe, is clearly a mistake.
And just if you're an activist, just remember that the NSA lost a lot of stuff.
Yeah, everybody does.
Their job. So we just want to keep in mind it's a pretty you have to be really, really careful with any electronic device, anything electronic once you do that. And in general,
you're only safe if you're both naked in a field more than 100 meters from the nearest person. Then go ahead, have a good conversation.
Isn't that a reality show on the Discovery Channel?
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. It turns out that whole show is all about case officers.
Apple has also started to give ground in its App Store rules. CNBC says the Apple strategy to fight off antitrust regulators, fix the App Store one rule at a time. I can't say I disagree. There've been bit by bit, inch by inch concessions. I'm sure Apple doesn't want to give any of these. So the concession in this case is a benefit, I think, to some, particularly the smallest companies, just like the 15%, the cut for sub $1 million companies. What have they agreed to? I have to.
It's another. They've been consistent in saying that it turns out that they're willing to concede on the idea of Apple as the exclusive payment processor for purchases, and this is, I believe, just another hook at that.
They've already lost in South Korea, right?
Yeah, and
we talked about last week.
Yeah. But it seems it's not a really big problem for them. It also is, from a PR perspective, when they're trying to fight this fight, they can say, okay, well, little developers that are making $8,000 a year, if you want to track all the international expenses and all the international taxes going everywhere yourself, you're fine to do that. Of course, we'd be happy to do that for you if you use us as your payment processor.
The change doesn't affect the big money game companies. And that's the real thing. Epic still is going to have to use Apple's store, but Apple did agree to allow some companies, Spotify, Netflix, to
quote unquote reading applications.
Kindle,
all your magazines and
say, hey, you could buy this somewhere else.
You no longer have to pretend that there is no world outside of the Apple App Store, which is we consider that we're considering this a victory that they have decided that it's okay for them to modify the most ridiculous terms in the App Store agreement. Like, okay, I mean,
Here's Phil Schiller's
one foot of land is 1 foot of land, but okay.
Here's Phil Schiller's statement. The change will help developers of reader apps make it easier for users to set up and manage their apps and services while protecting their privacy and maintaining their trust. See, Apple's always going to underline that privacy.
Well, I think that the thing that they've done is the numbers for Apple are almost zero. I mean, like these companies aren't making any money, and so
Netflix is, Spotify is,
but they already did that deal. Like Spotify, Spotify's making some money, but for the most part, these readers are not making that much. They're not gonna. It's not gonna really change Apple's numbers that heavily. The big thing though is that they're going to be the most annoying about it because this is a market that is shrinking quickly, and so the thing is that they're going to be okay. Now we finally get information from the user, and we can start sending them emails. And then users are going to get a preview of what this is going to be like if it opens up everywhere, and they're not going to be happy about it. They're not going to like. One thing what I'm not clear about in this announcement is whether they're going to opt in or opt out. I think that the user should have to opt in. To say I'm okay with being contacted by folks through my email, because right now it appears that it's opt out. So and I think the users should be allowed to say that.
Well, I don't know if it's email. It says they'll be permitted to include a link within the app to direct users to set up or manage their accounts.
There's access to, I believe that there's access to being able to email them through there.
This has always been a complaint from many developers, is that Apple holds on tight to who my subscriber is, and so maybe they're going to get some. Yeah, I guess it would have that effect if you exit out to the website, then they now know who
I can tell you,
are.
the first developer that emails me that I didn't ask for, that'll be the end of that app.
I get so much. Don't you get so much junk mail that it's useless to even think about that? I mean,
get frustrated. I just get frustrated with people adding more. Like I do admit that I get a ton of junk mail, but I just I have all these filters, and if you add another one, then I have to add another filter. At this point, I'm constantly every day I'm unsubscribing from something.
Yeah, that's just
I will just say that it's more important for me with the smaller developers than it is with the larger ones, because the chances are that the company that makes Downy, my video downloader, I like what they do. It's a great tool. I'm very happy to support them. If they have a new tool that complements the Downy tool very well, I absolutely want to know about it. If it's a game company, if it's a lot of companies that I like their house style, I like their attitude, I like their approach, and if they have other projects, it's very likely I'm going to want to learn about them as well. So in that case, absolutely not. I would be very, very pleased for them to be able to contact me directly.
No, and I think they should be able to contact you if you opt in. I just don't think that they should suddenly turn it on.
I agree.
I've got a lot of apps, and I'm not that interested in being contacted by all of them. I mean, there's a handful of them. To your point, Downing, by the way, is a great app. Kingdom Rush, which is my little game. They send me little things all the time about new things I can buy, and I try not to.
That's their business model, man.
It works, but they don't have to send me emails. I open the app.
I know.
And
I'm already there.
A whole bunch of heroes, and I'm like, ooh, okay.
Data point, don't know what it means. Rogue Amoeba, which makes an app called Fission, which we've recommended. It's been an app pick of the week on this show. Is pulling it off the Mac App Store. They're going to start selling it directly, no longer through the Mac App Store, because they say that the App Store, for almost 20 years, we've sold our software directly to our customers, they say, via our online store. Since the Mac App Store opened in 2011, we've experimented there. However, despite a decade of feedback from countless developers and users, Apple has made scant few changes, and the store remains beset with issues. And when you couple the many shortcomings and issues with Apple's restrictive policies that preclude most of our software from appearing there, Rogue Amoeba's software often, works at a low level of the system that App Store doesn't want you to do. Yeah. The App Store is clearly a poor fit for us. With the removal of Fission, we no longer have any products in the Mac App Store.
They're a great example. They make Audio Hijack, which I use every single day. It's like a magical tool for recording stuff live from a microphone, recording stuff that's streaming in as a VCR for streaming audio. And they couldn't do it under App Store rules. And that's actually, Rogue Amoeba is another good example. They are a really good studio for apps. And if they come up with something that's brand new, I want to hear about it. And I will also say that that's not, this blog post is not unique to Rogue Amoeba. I keep it's a story I keep hearing regularly from a lot of developers where they just have to keep asking themselves the question, does all of the hassle they have to go through to maintain a presence in the Mac App Store worth whatever attention that they get through being in the App Store? Because remember, it's not just about make sure that, okay, well, gee, so Audio Hijack can't have pornographic content. We're okay with that. And it's more like, well, if it's going to be in the App Store now, I have to support certain APIs that really are not relevant for our app. We have to comply with certain amount of rules that, once again, we'd have to spend a whole bunch of months on stuff that's solely responsible for App Store compliance, when we would rather spend those 3 months adding features. So yeah, this is why I'm glad that the Mac Store is open, because I think that you can still have a vibrant App Store environment on iOS where it really is explicitly a consumer level experience, not a computer that's designed to do absolutely anything. If those same restrictions were to land on the Mac Store, that would fundamentally change what the Mac is for everybody.
I think that would be a long way away if it happened. But I think that you have to be, as a small app developer that's not making expensive apps and so on and so forth, I think you have to have a certain level of quality, because what you sit on when you use the Mac App Store is the fact that there's a certain level of trust in the Mac App Store as a small developer. Rogue Amoeba is mature enough, and they make products. I use Loopback and Audio Hijack every day, just like Andy. So by the way, just in case you're wondering, buy them as a bundle. Like don't buy once, cry once, because it's just it always hurts.
Or just put some money in a box and mail it to them, because at some point you're going to be glad that they have your money.
You're going to pay more if you buy.
Right. Okay, that too.
Then Audio Hijack and Audio Hijack, then Loopback, because you're going to buy both of them because they work together anyway. So they can get away with this because I'm willing to buy that app. But like an unknown developer at this point selling an app for less than $50, I don't give them the time of day. Like if they're not in the App Store, I'm not. And it has something to do with security. It has a lot to do with the fact that I got to install this. Like when I get a new computer, the wonder of the App Store is like, as I turn it on and I go install, I just go install everything, and it just sets up my computer again with a nice fresh install of all the bits and pieces. And so little apps, I'm not playing anymore, and so I think that's the challenge and that's the advantage that small app developers get, is a first level of trust and convenience for the user that makes it easier for them to, sell into that market, because I'm willing to give them a chance. I'm like, oh, well, they're here, and I'll buy a bunch of these, and they're less expensive now than they were before. But for small developers, I think the App Store actually does a good job for it, for companies like Rogue Amoeba and other ones that are more mature. But I think that if you venture out of the Mac Store, you have to be really good at what you do, because there's a lot of people that I've talked to that are the same way. They're like, I'm not gonna bother.
And I don't disagree with you. I think you've made excellent points there. The thing that we're not talking about, though, are people who are not necessarily trying to make a fortune off of their menu bar utility, but they think that, wow, I made this thing because I thought it really would be a great thing to exist for my desktop, and now with only 2 or 3 more months worth of work, I made it something that is muscular enough that anybody would want it, and I would love for people to give me $5 for it. And if they make just like on my professional photography, I make less than $500 a year off of it. But whenever like someone says, hey, if I gave you $100, could I use your roller derby pictures as part of our poster? Like, sure, I'd be very happy to do that. So I'm glad that Apple continues to have support for people who just want to be weird with as few rules as possible and do it underneath their own terms. So I think that we can both be right here.
Yeah, no, I think that I'm glad, because there's still a bunch of apps that I would not. There's a bunch of low-level apps that I use that would not work inside of the App Store that I need, and so I'm glad that we have both in that environment.
I will welcome you to the wonderful world of Linux the minute it doesn't.
Yes, that too. I love. There are times where, like, sometimes you just want to go to that beach that has cold water, because it's just such an invigorating environment as an alternative. And for me, that's what Linux is like, when I can just say that, gee, just the idea that I don't like the way that my windows behave. I will spend the next 2 days looking at window managers, and then another day figuring out how to configure them perfectly. And then I have exactly what I want. I'm so happy that I have my Lenovo laptop that is just for that's just for Mint Linux. It's just so hard for me to recommend it to people like to regular civilians as people who I want to buy a Chromebook, or I want to buy like a mid-level Windows notebook or an entry-level MacBook. And I want to be just as happy with this Linux install as I will be with this Mac and with this Windows machine. I'm not quite there yet to recommending it, but yeah, I think everybody once they have a machine that is no longer going to be running the latest and greatest Mac OS or Windows, they need to install Mint or Zoom or a very, very simple Linux distro, because if nothing else, it will show you exactly what you've been missing from these commercial operating systems.
So. Breaking story just over the wire from CNBC. We talked a lot about Doug Field, who led the Tesla Model 3 project, leaving Tesla, going to Apple to serve as vice president of, quote, special projects. It's widely believed he was leading Apple's, or one of the leaders of Apple's car project. He has now left Apple and is going to Ford under the new Ford Plus turnaround plan. Apple said in a statement, "We're grateful for the contributions Doug has made to Apple. We wish him all the best in his next chapter."
Yeah, that's obviously we're all just reacting to this. This to me sounds like he wants to build something that will actually ship, and he has lost confidence. Either he has lost confidence that Apple is on a path towards actually shipping something that amounts to a regular car, or that there's been a shuffle and he can no longer have the amount of say in the project that he wants to. I think there was also, I'm searching for it now, but I believe that Apple themselves made a very interesting hire where they hired some important people from, I want to say Mercedes-Benz, but I could be wrong. Which made me, I do remember reading the story this morning or yesterday and thinking that, so that's another data point towards they really want to make a real car, as opposed to they want to do a fleet vehicle or they want to do an airport vehicle.
Yeah. If Apple hired Field, it was because they wanted to build a vehicle.
Right.
And I think you're right. Just on the face of it, if he's leaving so quickly, maybe he came to the conclusion that that wasn't in the near future.
Or could have to do with a lot of money.
Could also be Ford said, "Here's $1 billion." Yeah,
I mean, like here's a bunch of stock, and here's a whole lot of money, more than Apple. The question is that he, Apple probably had the choice to try to outbid it. So it could be an enormous amount of money. He has so much information, like starting at Apple, then going to Tesla, then going back to Apple, then going to he is super valuable to. Yeah. I bet you his numbers are really high.
But still, he also worked at Segway, so I'm hopeful that we're going to have a self-driving.
Segway,
two-wheeler.
I mean, if he was really the head of the Apple Car project, he was making enough money to be one of those crazy, stupid tech people. It's hard to imagine how much more money you can pay a person that would say, "Wow, I'm really thrilled what's going on at Apple. I really think I have a great future here at Apple." But yes, making $60 million instead of $40 million means that, yes, you got me, Ford, even though you've shown me nothing that I necessarily think is going to be better direction for my career, for my talent.
Ford has created a new title for him, Chief Advanced Technology and Embedded Systems Officer.
Yeah, and I think that the other thing is that you get to a point where you want to maximize your return. He's probably one of like 10 people that know what he knows in the world.
Right.
And so, and Ford gives him way scalability, because he now has an entire, Apple has possibly one car that it's going to put out at first, right? Because that's what Apple does. Ford has fleets. So his ability to take what his ideas and project them across fleets over the next 5 or 10 years is much higher. Like he'll get to work with one car or two cars with Apple, and he'll get to work with the entire infrastructure of Ford. I think
Ford's reinventing itself. This is a really exciting and interesting time to go to Ford, actually.
I think it's an interesting time to go to all of all the auto companies are
GM's doing it.
Electric.
Yep.
Everyone is moving to self-driving. Everyone's moving to, so all of this stuff is all happening at one time. They're all in competition for the same very, very limited resource of experts that understand how to do this. It's really interesting.
No, but I'm more concluding than ever that he wants to build a car that will actually ship as a car, and what Apple is a maybe, Ford is a definite. You're right. A car company that can add electronics is going to be more attractive than a technology company that might be building a car as a platform for testing out a technology that they are. I keep coming back to the analogy of, I keep thinking about those poor Soviet cosmonauts who were training to land on the moon, who put all of their lives, put all their careers on hold, focusing all of their energy and their efforts, only to be told that, yeah, we're not doing that anymore, go home. And this project never happened. That's got to be demoralizing for someone. When you talk about executives who's been working in the car industry, he was like the head of cars for Tesla before coming to Apple. And if he gets a whiff that maybe they don't know what they're doing and they keep changing strategies every couple of years, I would much rather go with a car company that will definitely make a car. If nothing else, the technology that he's developing can be implemented immediately in like a level 3 assistive driving technology if it's not a completely self-driving technology. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff here.
I just think I definitely expect to have Apple ship a car, but it's only going to be one. It's not going to be like I can control all the lines of Ford. I mean, now for a guy that's designing cars, the entire drivetrain or the entire process for, it's a much different thing, and Apple will never get there. You never get to that level.
It's got to be a plum job. And as you pointed out, Field had worked at Apple for 5 years prior to Tesla, so he might have had a sentimental attachment to Apple, but you got to think the Ford job's a plum, right? That's the job, right, in that area. Hey, I want to make a mention real quickly so that you can put it on your calendars. I think we have a little thing called Club TWiT, $7 a month. It's a great way to support what we do, to encourage more of what we do. We have the Discord server. We have ad-free versions of our shows for Club TWiT members, and of course, the TWiT Plus feed. We've kind of promoted Ant Pruitt to be our community manager. We really needed somebody who would take Club TWiT under his wing and massage it. He's announced his first event coming up Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific. Micah Sargent will do an AMA on our Club TWiT Discord. So make a little note of that. Save the date. This Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific. That's 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 1700 UTC. Micah Sargent, and an Ask Me Anything in our Club TWiT Discord. If you're not yet a Club TWiT member, by the way, that will end up being on the TWiT Plus feed as well, but you need to be a Club TWiT member to get that. If you're not a Club TWiT member, please go to twit.tv/Club TWiT. Help support our mission here at Sabadago Gigante.
What's my AMA? That's what I want to know.
You want to do an AMA? And call it Ant Pruitt. I got another one for you, Ant. I'd love to have you do an AMA. That'd be awesome. Yeah. And Andy, you too. And I'm sure that's the plan, is to do one every week now.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let us take a break. When we come back, your picks, boys and boys. And a reminder, if you're just tuning in, the reason Renee's not here, he had a last-minute emergency, all is well, but he will be, I can't say he'll be back next week, because next week we'll be doing our Apple event. Renee often gets called away during those special days, but he'll be back soon, I'm sure.
The great thing about when Renee is away, he comes back with all kinds of really great information that we don't have. So
exactly,
we'll pay for his parking at the airport. He does that stuff.
Mac Break brought to you today by Udacity. You love tech, we know that. Would you like to get a job in tech? Well, it's interesting. Udacity was founded by a former Googler about 10 years ago, almost exactly, who was realizing that the skills people with computer science degrees brought to the job were maybe not quite sufficient for what Google needed. He started Udacity, partnered with Google to create the Nano Degree program. Udacity is an absolutely wonderful, I think the best-in-class part-time online education program. Anybody who's looking to take their technology to the next level should check it out. But especially if you want to get a job in tech, these nano degrees are designed in partnership with big companies, not just Google, Microsoft, IBM, AWS, and more. Your teachers are often team leads at these top companies, teaching you in areas, there are nano degrees in areas that you can't get anywhere else, like AI, deep learning, flying car and autonomous flight engineer, intro to self-driving cars. You want us to be talking about you next year? You just took a job at Ford. This is where you start. Machine learning engineer, robotics software engineer. Now, one of the things I love about Udacity, I've taken courses there. In fact, I joined almost as soon as they started. One of the things I love about Udacity is it's very much hands-on. They understand you can watch the courses, you've got great teachers, but until you've actually implemented what you've learned, you really haven't learned it. So all the courses are project-based, active learning. You'll test your knowledge. Your homework and projects will be reviewed by qualified professionals, just like code reviews at those big companies, just like you'll get when you get in the real job. But you're not alone doing this. You're always going to have real human feedback and reviews. There's a wonderful mentorship program which gives you access to mentors who can help you along 24/7. And I mean 24/7 because Udacity is often the first place people go who want to get a better job. So they still have the day job, but you can just put in 5 to 10 hours a week, maybe an hour a night, working at your own pace, any time of the day or night. It could be in the morning too. Graduate in as little as 3 months and get a great job. Over 14 million people use Udacity in over 240 countries. According to the World Economic Forum, 75 million jobs will disappear, replaced by automated processes in the next 3 years. And maybe it's time to start, if that might be you, it might be time to start training for a job of the future. Check out the amazing courses at Udacity, udacity.com/twit. Flexible payment options. You can learn at your own pace and schedule. There are free courses. And if you're a business and you want to get your team to master cutting-edge technologies like data science, AI, cybersecurity, we all want that now. Udacity for Enterprise will help you upskill your entire workforce with those real-world project-based learning classes they're so famous for. Be sure to check out the Enterprise section of Udacity's website today. Get the in-demand tech skills you need to advance your career. Visit udacity.com/twit. Get 75% off any program with the code TWIT75. Limited time offer. That's Udacity, udacity.com/twit. 75% off is a great offer. That's an amazing deal. Take advantage of it while it's still in effect. TWIT75 is the offer code. Andy Anatko, let's kick it off with your pick of the week.
My pick is the latest edition of the Google Nest doorbell. They've just come out with a battery-operated edition, which was a great solution for me because my building doesn't have like wired doorbells. Where you get the power wires that go to the doorbell. This was it operates for about 2 to 3 months on battery.
Nice.
When you need to recharge it, you use a special tool to pop it loose from its mounting bracket. So again, knuckleheads can't just simply like pop it right off, plug it into USB 3 charger, and charge it back up for another 2 or 3 months. I like it a lot. It took me a while to find a video doorbell that does what I needed to do. I still think that you shouldn't have a video doorbell unless there is a problem that you need to solve with it. Otherwise, it's a sort of a security hole that you don't need to invite into your life. I have a problem that from time to time on this show you've seen where there's someone knocking at the door. I don't know if it's something that I need to get up from this desk while I'm broadcasting to go answer. If I see that, okay, I know exactly what this is, I'm just going to let them leave whatever it is at the door, or I'll send a text. I know who this is. I'll send them a text message saying that, hey, come by in about an hour. These are problems that I absolutely need to solve. So this is why I've sort of been looking for one of these things. I like the reasons why the Nest doorbell kind of did it for me was largely because I do trust Google when it comes to privacy and security, again, within the limitations of Google. But I certainly, the other big player is Amazon, and I absolutely do not trust them. I also do not approve of how they're trying to use they're trying to sell Ring doorbell through local law enforcement to turn it into sort of a private, no warrant surveillance system. And as for third-party options, I'm not sure that they've been really rigorously tested for security, for penetration from other people. They might try to access it from outside the network. So that solves that problem. I like the way that the software works. It's powered by Google artificial intelligence, so that whereas the Ring doorbell, just like this one, will let you, for instance, specify, I only keep an eye on here's the big wide-angle view. Please only pay attention to what's happening in this driveway area that I've marked out for you. However, the Google Nest doorbell uses machine learning image recognition, so you can say, please only only give me alert when a car appears in the driveway, or please give me alert when a package appears on my doorstep, or if there is somebody, when someone rings the doorbell, tell me exactly, identify who it is, and tell me exactly who it is, because so you can basically say that, oh, well, this is that person who rang the doorbell, that's my mom, so remember what my mom looks like. So as a result, you can basically get it to do the things that you want it to do as a sophisticated doorknob, besides just simply be a dumb camera that switches on when there's motion detected and then switches off later on. Very, very easy to install. It comes with something that not a lot of video doorbells come with, which is the simplest damn thing, an actual angled bracket, so that in my door is sort of in a corner. So if I have the camera mounting like just flat against the door frame or the surround, all I will get is like halfway just wall, and the halfway will be what's actually pointing to it. But given that it also comes with an angled bracket, I can just simply put that bracket behind it. So now it's actually on like sort of an 80-degree angle, so I can see other things. Installation was very, very easy. Setup was very, very easy. As it happens, I do have other Google Nest devices. I do have a smart display on my nightstand. I do have smart speakers, so things get announced and the video gets fed very, very easily. So it's another advantage if you happen to be plugged into Google. But so far, I'm very, very happy with it. It hasn't been an annoyance. It has solved the problem that I wanted to solve. Wish I could solve it for less than $179, but I don't want to get a $50 video doorbell that I'll be 3 months later. I'll be on like NPR here saying, well, a warning for everybody who has the Toami video doorbell. It turns out that your feed is being put into like an actual streaming video service, and as Bernistan. Okay, well, I have to deactivate a whole bunch of things on my doorstep. But yeah, it works very well. I really, really like it. I also like that it's subtle. It doesn't stick out the way that a Nest doorbell does.
Very nice. I wonder if Apple would ever make something like that. They don't make any cameras. I wonder if they ever would do that. Probably not.
I wish they would. That's an area that they could really move the needle.
People would feel so much better, I think.
Exactly. If Apple had a video doorbell, even though like I don't have an iPhone, I would be thinking very, very seriously about going with it instead of a Google doorbell. Because, again, I trust Google within the lowercase version of the word trust, but Apple, for all the jokes and for all the snarky comments I make and all the valid criticisms I make about how sometimes it's not so concerned about privacy as they want us to think, I do think that they're of the trillion-dollar tech companies, they're the most concerned with user privacy and protecting privacy. So that would be such a huge selling point for such a device. Yeah. And it would look cool.
Yeah.
Here's a 3D model of everybody who came to your house.
That's good.
I think that person needs to lose a little weight.
You could rotate them around and say,
"You look like 4 pounds."
until like some company makes a video doorbell that's like a little panel slides open and one of those a glass eyeball like on an arm like on Jabba the Hutt's palace. Ichuta. Then that's my pick so far.
Oh my gosh, I need one of those. How does that not exist?
Jabba the Hutt doorbell.
And you can't come in unless you respond in Huttese. Like, Uta nikta do Jabba do Hutt? Like, pass, friend.
Is that actual Hutt?
That is mostly Hutt. R2 de toa, C3 pe oa. Each day niktu Jabba do Hutt?
Well, it's an
unusual ability.
I'll put it this way: I can order in a Hutt restaurant without pointing at the menus. I'm not fluent, but you know,
say hello, goodbye, thank you. Yeah, Pizza the Hutt. I've been there. Sure.
You know, there used to be
I'm holding a thermo
at ILM between Cookie Bay and C Theater. There used to be a thing called Java the Hutt, and it was the coffee place.
Java the Hutt.
I have my Java the Hutt mug that is not allowed to be used, let alone washed, because if anything happened to that mug, I would be very, very upset with myself and God. Yes. Sorry,
Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
So this one has bubbled up through this. I bring you this next one through office hours. That this is becomes kind of the common knowledge of something starts with someone starting to experiment, and then they start talking about it. Next thing you know, I'm buying it. This is a company called Pluggable, and one of the problems that we've had with the M1 Mac
love their stuff.
Is that we haven't been able to get more than 2 monitors. You know, it's not really built for more than 2 monitors. And so what what Pluggable does, it has this little box here, and this box is a USB-C, or you can do the USB-A with the converter or whatever, but USB-C, and it has either DisplayPort or two DisplayPort or two HDMI outs. If you take two of these and you plug them into your M1 Mac Mini, we have been able to get up to 5 displays out. So, and the reason we're doing it is because we're pinning lots of people on Zoom so that we can get ISOs out of them, so that we can get so basically you're still sharing audio for now, but if you wanted to get the video out of a Zoom room, we can get up to 5 per, and we're really doing 4 per room, but we can get per computer. So it's a slick little box, and so far it's worked really well. I just started testing it. It's worked well for me, but we have other people within office hours that have been doing it. Chris Fenwick, I'll call out to Chris Fenwick and Andrew Carlucci, the guys that
that's really interesting. It sounds like the M1 has more capability than Apple's letting on.
Well, I think that this is still like it's not as built in. It's built into support too. And it is, but yeah, it definitely seems that you can do more. I don't know if you can do as much high performance output that you might want, but you can definitely get more monitors out.
Very interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah, I've used a number of pluggable devices. I've found them to be very reliable, affordable. They're good.
And the main thing is that we're trying to get some very simple things out of it. Video. Right. When you start adding all those monitors, and I think that what Apple's doing is they're keeping it limited to what it can do well. We're asking it to do more than what it can do well. But so far it's worked seamlessly. So it hasn't been a problem, but we know that we're, asking the computer now to support more monitors than it was designed for. Right. And for our purposes, it's working fine, but it may not work, use at your own risk, but it's working pretty well for those of us who need more monitors.
It also very handily has an Ethernet port. Just, throw that in. Just, you may need that. You might want that. Yeah. Good pick. Pluggable, PLUGABLE.com. Only one G. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. OfficeHours.global. That's the place to find out more about office hours. If you want to hire Alex and his crew for your next stream, 090.media.
And I'm actually getting interviewed by one of our members, Tony Mobley. Is a teacher from Atlanta or outside of Atlanta, and if you search for Conversations with Tony Mobley, I'm on tomorrow. I think at 5 o'clock Pacific, or 5 o'clock Pacific Standard, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard. But if you do a search for that, I'll be on, and he's going to be grilling me.
Fun.
Well, I don't know what he's going to ask, but he's going to.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
But it's a member that really started with member of Office Hours that started with a laptop and trying to figure out, how to get everything working. And now he's running his own show. And we've got members that are so basically when you watch the show, you can watch me get interviewed, but the cool thing is that on the back end, they're doing Zoom rooms in AWS, and then they're tying them all into vMix, and then they're pushing them all out. So all the graphics that you see in that stream are all done in the cloud, like really in the cloud. So it's kind of an amazing production process as well. So it's kind of we think it might be the future. So we call it the Mobley process.
Nice.
There's the Belfast method, and there's the Mobley process, and this show, Conversations with Tony Mobley, is the Mobley process.
Andy Yanako, WGBH. You already talked about your appearance this Thursday again, yes?
Yep. Just go to WGBHnews.org live or later to stream it. Friday at 12:30, I think.
Perfect. We also do this show, and it'll be a special one next week because we'll be covering the iPhone 13, if that's what Apple chooses to call it. We do Mac Break Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. So if you want to watch live next week, we'll be starting early. You know what? Start with iOS Today at 8:30 Pacific and just watch all day. It'll be a great Apple day. The live streams are at twit.tv/live, audio or video. If you're watching live, chat live in our IRC, irc.twit.tv. Of course, Club Twit members also can chat live in the Discord. Always a fun place to be. It's because it has animated GIFs, which makes it even more exciting. Club Twit I always wait for the Club Twit folks to post appropriate animated GIFs at the end of every show. Club Twit is at twit.tv/clubtwit if you want to know more. On-demand versions of this show are available, of course, at the website twit.tv/mbw. There's a YouTube channel dedicated. If you watch, at your leisure on demand, you could still kind of converse asynchronously with us. We've got a Twit forums. They're free to all at twit.community. Also, our Mastodon instance at twit.social. We take questions and talk about stuff there. Some good conversations going on there. Of course, the best way to get the show would be to get a podcast client, a podcatcher, if you will, and subscribe. If your podcatcher allows for reviews, please give us a 5-star review. Help share the news, share the good news that is Mac Break Weekly. Thank you, Andy. We'll see you next week. Thank you, Alex. See you all next week with a big Apple announcement. Now, it's time to get back to work because break time is over.
Have you ever read a tech news story and thought to yourself, man, I would love to talk to the person who wrote this to find out more information? Well, that's exactly what Micah Sargent and I, Jason Howell, do each and every week on Tech News Weekly. We read the stories that matter to us, we reach out to the people making a break in the tech news, and we invite them on to tell their story. And you can find it at twit.tv. Look for Tech News Weekly every Thursday.